Good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, July 14th, 2018, and we're just about ready to start the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling, adorable wife, Joyce, and so count them, two, and you probably can count them, one and two, special guests.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be an amazing, amazing show, so why don't, I'm just going to get started with the music, because it's time, and we're ready, and thanks for joining us. Make sure that's on. And that's on. Good morning!
Good morning! Good morning! Good morning! There goes the Daverhood!
And there was much rejoicing.
Didn't your meds kick in yet?
We got David Lefkowitz here. He's a Long Island arts guy. He's got his own radio show.
I want you all to really enjoy a wonderful program done by a fine artist.
A glorious thing of unparalleled beauty.
Dave's Gone By. Dave is one of my very favorite broadcasters, so keep on listening to Mr. Dave.
Well, there goes the Daverhood. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to all on this Saturday morning, July 14th, 2018 for the...
I fixed your phone and ended at night.
Oh, thank you, sweetie. For the 659th episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling. See, she's actually this way. It's very convenient. See, that's her hand, disembodied hand.
Woo!
Joyce. And we have, as we usually say, an absolutely terrific show for you, but we really actually mean it. Well, we always mean it, but we especially mean it this time because we have two, count them, two, you see you can count them, special guests in the Daverhood on the program today, as well as all our usual stuff. The usual stuff includes our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, and that's where we do an absolutely atrocious limerick about a particular town or city in Colorado, and today's town is going to be Bedrock. From the town of Bedrock, we'll be making a limerick about it. How exciting, right?
Like the Flintstones?
Just kind of like the Flintstones. And what else? Well, we will have time. We will always make time for, oh no, I dropped the poster. For, please, if you don't mind. Yes, another installment of everybody's favorite, A Cow for Hansel. I think it's part 17 of that. We'll go inside Broadway for news, so thank you, of the Rialto. And I talk about the theater and lots of news about Broadway this week. Kind of interesting. Also, we'll have a Saturday segue, pardon me, of songs in the news. And we'll also talk about this amazing poster, which has nothing to do with me, but notice Ben Pooh involved. And what else? Oh, yeah, we have two incredible guests on the show today. First of all, absolutely legendary pianist, composer, music arranger, fellow named Dick Hyman. No jokes, Rabbi Saul will make them later, but Dick Hyman, he's 91 or 92 years old now, but this guy has dozens of albums out. He's worked mostly in jazz piano, but he was also almost on the forefront of doing Moog synthesizer kind of jazz and a little bit of jazz fusion in that direction. Plus, he has scored movies. He did almost a dozen Woody Allen movies.
Awesome.
Including, I believe, Purple Rose of Cairo and bunches of, classic or near classic Woody Allen films. He also scored Moonstruck. What was, and I'm forgetting some of the other, unfortunately, films that he scored. But, oh my gosh, he was declared a jazz master by the National Endowment for the Arts. Dick Hyman will be with us in the Daverhood. And by the way, before I don't get a chance, welcome to Karen and Melissa and Tara and Eric and Nancy and Ryan. Nancy says, good morning, Dave and Joyce. So hello to Nancy and to Raymond as well. So that is one of our guests.
Tell them about the woman
right
in.
Now, this is going to be the first time, so hopefully this won't be disastrous, the first time since we've been on Facebook doing this program this way, as opposed to just
that's not
radio.
True.
Oh.
You had on Babushka.
Yeah, but they weren't live.
Yes, they were.
No.
We
no.
Facebook Live them.
Well, yeah, but it was not. That wasn't our program. In other words, we taped it live. We put them on Facebook. We were recording them, but
Are
we
you
weren't doing
sure?
the actual broadcast. It was broadcast later.
Oh,
When little Fyodor and the
wow.
babushka came a few months ago and talked with Rabbi Saul and actually did a 20-minute concert for us, which was amazing. But this is the first time that we've been doing the program live, and we're going to have the guests live in studio, knock wood. So that's going to be, we've been on the air for 15 and a half years. It's way cool.
And
Than
some
we
of
haven't
that
ever.
actually on the radio and on the Facebook.
Yeah,
Some
most
of
of
that
it.
in your head waves.
Oh, some just in my brain head. Yeah. No, it's always nice when we have a momentous.
You put your hand and see if you could grab potato. The other hand, see if you can cut potato.
Oh. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Hey, little
tickle
Tater.
'em.
So, but what do they call that? It's a first. It's a
It's a virgin. It's a maiden maiden voyage.
Well, we do have a Hyman on this show.
I know, so it's
Yeah.
a maiden voyage. Yeah.
We have a Dick Hyman. I know, and also Susan Shumsky, who Susan Shumsky. She
I'm gonna open the door for you a little bit.
she's a former '60s hippie kind of person, but that's not why we're having her on the show. She really, really got into TM and all that stuff, and the Middle Eastern, or what do they call them?
Transcendental meditation.
South Asian
Yeah, South
stuff.
Asian.
Just around the time also, of course, that the Beatles were there and folks like that were coming out to see the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi out in India. Well, she really was into it. I mean, the Beatles were into it for a couple of weeks. And then they kind of said, let's get back to our music, and we're not so sure about what's going on here. But Susan Shumsky stayed. In fact, she stayed for about 20 years
Wow.
working for and with the Maharishi in India, and I guess in his tours and travels. We'll ask her all about that. She's written a book called Maharishi and Me. She's also written a bunch of other books about meditation and spirituality and finding God in the universe and stuff that I am completely alien to. Since it's about God, the person who will be interviewing her, as well as Dick Hyman, is the one, the only, the Jewish Rabbi Saul Solomon. So he will be here in person too. So it's an occasion. It is a first time, I think, for Rabbi Saul, although he did a Limerick about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So Rabbi Saul did make a brief appearance live on this show as we've been visual on Facebook. But you'll get to see him. You know, he exists. He lives.
Rabbi Saul is real.
Yeah, I believe so. It's like that Costa Gavras movie, Z. And his would be, I don't know, what's the Hebrew equivalent of Z? Zayin.
It would be high. Right?
Zayin.
Oh,
Chai. He would be Chai. I'm Saul Solomon
Chai. I tried to
Chai.
explain to somebody why the number 18 is significant, but I think the letters in Chai are 18, right?
Yeah. Chai, well, Chai means life or to life, yeah. Right? Or Chaim is life. And so Chet is 8,
okay. And
Yud is 10. If you put numbers to them,
I tried to explain to someone why 18.
There's probably other gematria things involved.
But I
thought
of like
about
Jungian 9 and 3, but then I thought it's not Jungian.
Yeah, or 6 and 9, which is a whole lot of fun. You put those. Ow! Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So how are you? Oh, by the way, welcome to Raymond and Walker and Michael. How you doing, hon?
Good.
Okay, good. What's
After
new?
my fall, I'm still recovering.
Oh yeah, I mean we've just had the.
Yeah.
I won't say it's a summer from hell. Nobody's died yet. Nobody's been diagnosed with something horrible. It's been one miserable thing after another. From our car getting bashed by hail. I've had a bad back for 3-4 weeks now. How did you fall? What happened?
I was walking in the gym and you left me. And I fell forward.
And you mashed up your knee.
I only have one open sore. That's good. Yay.
And you're looking at him.
Yay.
Yeah.
Everything else is better though.
So that was your week. And let's see, also Long Island Pulse, they're going out of business.
Stop rehashing the past. Move forward.
What past? It's 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that distant past? We're talking about 3 years ago. What else? But we've had some good things happen too in the neighborhood, including finding this poster right here in the building that we're in for an upcoming concert. I've got nothing to do with this,
but
it's
the Cornhole Championship.
I know. We were talking 2 weeks ago about the great Joey Chestnut and the hot dog eating competition at Nathan's in Coney Island, right? And he got the world record, 74 hot dogs, man. He is the king. He is the god. But when you're watching ESPN2, because I want to see this, after that competition, Coney Island also had cornholing. I'm so glad we're bringing Dick Hyman on the show today. But yeah, cornholing is a sport, a real one-ish, where people take beanbags and throw them into holes.
It's like curling with no ice.
Basically, or talent, for that matter. Remember we were watching it in the stadium and there were 6 people in the stand?
And most of them, I think, were the family of the one player.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's
And
like, oh, John.
And 3 of the 6 were on their cell phones.
I should not exaggerating, by
No,
the way.
I'm actually downplaying the lack of interest in it.
So, cornholing. Well, who knew? We have it in Greeley, Colorado.
No, in Breckenridge.
Oh, this is in Breckenridge?
Yes, Breckenridge. Breakfast.
Oh, no, I thought it was in Greeley.
No, it's Breckenfest.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, look, someone who I want to get on the show at some point, the one and only Ben Pooh will be playing, because that's one of the greatest names in the history of music or anything.
Yes.
Ben Pooh, I'm not as good as Dick Hyman.
It's like Son of Pooh.
Oh, Pooh Jr.
Yes.
And then, no, 3 times on this announcement of something called Breckenfritz, a festival in Breckenridge of music and cool, sort of hippie-ish stuff. Notice what they have. Notice what they mention. Professional cornhole tournament. And then, for people who just aren't that good, who can't throw quite as well
you
with
might
that
throw your
arm,
arm out or something, yeah.
they have the recreational
You know,
cornhole.
you could do cornholing with the
I beg your pardon?
Papitos. Papitos are little
They're
bean bags.
perfect.
Like here, feel one that doesn't have
Yeah,
anything on it.
we could use.
Here,
Oh,
this one.
hand me a papito. Look, little potato.
Yeah.
Perfect size for a cornhole.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't
We
know
would
his
like
regulation.
it.
He's too small.
We could make if we get a piece of wood, we could paint it like ketchup, like a Heinz ketchup bottle, and the potatoes could be thrown in.
We could have so much fun doing that.
Yeah. That's how they did miniature golf. The guy made a little wooden thing with the hole, and you could putt into there.
Yeah,
We could do it.
we should do it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a cornholing
I'm
competition
sure
on
we
this
can go to
program.
like Target and get a cornholing kit for kids, and then just paint it. Yeah.
Just paint it red when the letters Heinz.
We'd have to do Heinz on it, and do
Or
like
maybe
a-
Sir Kensington.
or like a white label or something. Yeah.
Actually, that's the thing. We should have Heinz for the amateur, and then Sir
Yes,
Kensington for the
yes.
professional.
That should be the championship.
Because notice, fun for everyone, and they even mention it even further, virtual reality cornhole, human.
How lame are you if you can't do cornholing?
Well, I
Virtual
have a bad
reality?
shoulder. I don't know. No, those are 2 different things.
Oh.
Yeah. Could you imagine doing virtual cornholing
probably
at the
a
nursing
game,
home?
yeah.
It's like I'm imagining the bag heading towards the hole. Oh!
No, it would be like we.
No, I didn't weave this. I changed my underpants even. Oh, she's tickling me. Don't tickle me. So is there anything else on this
Can
amazing
you
thing?
put that poster down?
I can't. I must look at it. Oh, you mentioned also the eats. Look, they're going to have liquid nitrogen ice cream.
Yes. Yum, yum.
Oh, man. Does
I
life
think-
get better than liquid nitrogen ice
It
cream?
does not.
I hope it doesn't taste like liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen, it's only 59 degrees now. How can that be?
Oh, no, it's already hot as
It
hell out
says
there.
59 degrees,
No.
feels 51.
Maybe your
61.
hand is cold, and it's reading the temperature of
How
your
can
hand.
humidity be 93%?
Oh, but you can feel that. Ugh.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's why. It may be cool, but it doesn't feel cool because it's like New York, because it's all sticky and humid here in Greeley, Colorado, where
It's
we do
updating. Wait, it's updating.
Oh, cool. Where we do Dave's Gone By every
Oh, I
Saturday
lied.
from 9
It's-
until
it's
noon.
64 feels like 69.
If it feels like 69, that's the weather I want to go to. Oh, it's Cornhole Dick Hyman Day. Oh, it's going to be a morning. What else do we have to talk about? Is there anything else to do before we get to, because we're going to have a fairly short Greeley Crimes and Old Times because we have a
Yeah.
special guest.
Let's do
Coming
a
in.
couple and then let's find the lady.
Yeah.
Joseph,
Well, hopefully
join
she'll
us,
be
Yusef.
knocking on the door. Yeah, Joseph. Welcome to Joseph and
And
Gregory and
Greg.
Michael and Walker and Raymond and Ryan and Nancy and all these
You have
folks.
to do like, remember the one, it was that show in the morning with Miss Mary, and she'd have the mirror and say, I have a magical mirror, and in my mirror I see Raymond and Walker and Michael and Gregory and Joseph and Kim.
Was that The Wire? No, what show was
It
that?
was like a morning show. I forget. It was a kid's show, and she'd,
I never saw that one.
it wasn't Magical Garden, but it was something where Romper Room, maybe
Could
Romper
be.
Room, and then she'd have a mirror and she'd say, I see so and so, and then everybody would wait for their name. She never said Joyce.
Oh,
Because it's an unusual name. Like she probably picked the most popular name.
well, whenever we go on vacation or something, we
yeah.
look for a keychain
Nothing.
or some kind of those little things you get in crappy tourist places,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, Dave and usually
Like chlamydia.
LaQuisha,
No,
Tamisha.
chlamydia is what you get in the shop.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was a black woman's name. Sorry. No, but Joyce, no, never Joyce. Sometimes you can get for your Rosemary's tough too, and Larry. You get.
Someone's calling you.
Who's calling? Oh, I wonder.
Oh no, it's New York 917.
No, that might be her. That might be the.
Okay. Do you need to?
Do you want to talk off camera?
No, you just grab.
Hold on. Let's do this on the. Oh, I missed the call, but I'm going to call him right back because I have a feeling I know who this is.
Yeah.
The joys of live thing when you're basically a 2-person operation. This is fun. Hi, Dave. Dave's gone by here. Can I help you? Yeah, where are you at? Okay, well, look for our room, which is on the second floor.
Where is she?
No. Then you're technically on the third floor. That's the joy of UNC. You need to go down one flight to where the numbers start with 1. Because sort of our basement floor is the first. Don't even ask. But we're on the. Go down one flight, and you'll see our door kind of open-ish.
And I just tell her I'll be in a green shirt. I'll walk the hall for her.
And then my helper will be in her green shirt and can corral you.
I'll walk the hall, yeah.
Okay, she's going to walk the hall, and I'll walk the streets. Okay, here we go. So our guest is going to be here. Oh, yes, nothing like homegrown podcasting, ladies and gentlemen. Here on Dave's Gone By, I guess we'll have to put aside Grilling Crimes and Old Times for the day. So before our guest gets here, let me remind you that we couldn't do this program without the friendly help of our wonderful sponsors, Hewlett Minuteman Press, the copy kings of Broadway in Hewlett, Long Island. They've been there since 1974. The Torong family has owned and operated Hewlett Minuteman, doing fine copying, printing, binding, putting your name or logo on outfits, uniforms, various pens and pencils. If you need it to grow your business, Hewlett Minuteman Press can help. They can also do wedding invitations and holiday cards. So give them a call, 516-569-5577, area code 516-569-5577. They're closed on the weekends in the summer, but they'll be open Monday morning at 8:30. And if you tell them Dave sent you, you get 10% off any job, big or small, at Hewlett Minuteman Press, right in the heart of Hewlett, Long Island. Well, Dave Lefkowitz here with the Dave's Gone By program, our 659th episode, live on this July 14th, 2018. We're calling the show SHUMTHING Hyman, This Way Comes, because Dick Hyman will be with us, the legendary pianist. We're also going to have Susan Shumsky, the author of the book Maharishi and Me, about her years working for and believing in, as it were, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the guy that the Beatles went to and other rock stars like Donovan went to, and we'll ask her all about that kind of thing. What else? And we'll have a Saturday segue of songs in the news, our Limerick, our cow for Hansel. We'll go inside Broadway. Wondering why it's taking so long for her to get here. Let's kill some time, Dave. How am I going to do that? I could play some Dick Hyman. I could do that, but I have to pot it down pretty quickly. La 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 la. Well, let's see. What do I want to play here? How about? Oh, well, I mentioned that Dick Hyman did some electronic-ish music in the late '60s. He actually got kind of a hit with some of it. And then, this is just before switched on Beethoven or switched on Bach and all that stuff. This was really the exploration of adding these new sounds into jazz-related music. So we'll play a little bit of Dick Hyman, circa 1969, The Age of Electronicus. Ooh. Oops, sorry, roll that back a little wrong. But okay. As I said, or as I've said on the program, I've got to be careful with how much pre-recorded music I play when I'm on Facebook, because Facebook will give me a little naughty warning and stop the stream if it discovers something that's copyrighted material and I don't quote have the rights to it, even though what do you do on radio except play music? So we're going to play a little passages like that, as opposed to what I have been doing for about 15 years, where I could play as much music as I wanted to. But anyway, we'll have Dick Hyman in the Daverhood a bit later, talking with Rabbi Saul Solomon. We will also have, hopefully, momentarily, Susan Shumsky coming to the Daverhood to talk about her book, Maharishi and Me. And by the way, welcome to Robert from my old high school, and to Madeline, my boss about 25 years ago when I was working for a particular magazine, and Walker and Michael and Gregory and Joseph, et cetera, and so forth. Aha!
I'm going to get the water.
Hello, hey, there you are. Welcome. Come on in.
I told her about the potatoes. David, give me the keys. I'll get her the water.
The key. Oh, yeah.
Get her the water.
Have a get yourself settled. Yes, we're live on the air, as it were. Have a down sit. And Rabbi Saul is right across the way. So as soon as we get you settled, I'll do a little bit of an intro here, and we'll make sure to get you and him properly on the computer. So let me turn this way just for a moment so you can compose. How you doing? You good?
Doing great.
Once you found the room, right? Anyway, we'll be talking to Susan Shumsky in the Daverhood in just a moment or two. My darling Israel wife is getting her some water. This is why I don't do these things live usually. Kind of a newie for us here. But anyway, welcome. Potato says welcome. Oops, and he fell. That's got kind of a day. All right, hold on. And there goes my back. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as I would love to talk to our guest, Susan Shumsky in the Daverhood, you know that it's going to be a much more fun time talk with our beloved and most popular interviewer, Rabbi Saul Solomon, doing the honors. So, thank you so much.
Oh, which key?
Oh, it's the black one. Yeah, that one. Okay. So I'm gonna hang for I guess I'll just play more. See if I have more Dick Hyman music to play. I could. Or would you rather? Do you want to just take a moment and talk directly to the folks about your book?
Sure.
And then the rabbi will come in and actually grill you and ask you questions about it.
Oh, okay.
We can do it. We can do it that way. Are you comfortable doing that?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. Here, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado or a don't, is I'll turn this. I can just turn this right to you. There she is, the lovely and talented Susan Shumsky. Why can't I get this tilting toward you? There we go. So, Rabbi Saul will be right with us in a moment or two. But here, the author of Maharishi and Me, Susan Shumsky.
Hi.
Go.
Hi. So this is my memoir. It's about my life with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was the guru of the Beatles and the guru of Deepak Chopra. And I spent about 22 years in his various ashrams. An ashram is a place where you go to study with a spiritual master from India. And for 6 of those years, I was on Maharishi's personal staff. So I was kind of an insider, I'm definitely an insider, in the inner circle of this amazing guru who is the person who introduced meditation, yoga, mantra to the West in the 20th century. When he came to the West in 1959, there was no yoga, there was no mantra, there was no meditation. These things simply did not exist at that time. Within 10 years, he made these into household words. And some of the reason why he was able to do that was because of his association with a lot of different celebrities, like the Beatles and Deepak Chopra. And, well, actually, Maharishi was an incredibly famous man in his own right.
Like me.
Absolutely. Like
Rabbi
you.
Saul Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I'm delighted
Okay.
to be here
Rabbi.
with Susan Shumsky, a Jewess. Hello.
Hello.
Shalom to you. Let's kick us both on.
Shalom.
And
It's Sabbath, so shalom.
now let's see if we
This
can kick
is
us both.
Saturday.
It is true. Now, how Jewish were
Good
you?
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos to you too. How Jewish were you in your upbringing? Why are we not even here? What the hell's going on? Let me fix this. God damn it! All right. I'm gonna move this. Son of a bitch! What's wrong? There we go. Okay. I'm gonna move back. There we go. Now I need to move this forward. Oh my God. Yeah, this is show business right here. Were you raised very Jewish-esque growing up?
Jewish-esque, yes,
Yes.
I was very Jewish. Jewish-esque,
Yeah.
yes, I was.
So, Reformed, conservative.
Reform.
Okay, good. Did you have a bas mitzvah?
No.
Ah, damn it. All right. But, later on you've discovered it for you, a different way, So how much does Judaism stay with you, even though you've been doing this?
Well, I often call myself a Hindu.
A Hindu? What does that mean?
Well, seems kind of obvious. Hindu,
Not to me.
Hindu/Jew.
But
Yeah.
what parts do you keep of Judaism and what parts do you keep of the Hinduities?
Well, I don't think that a Jewish person ever really loses their kind of identity as a Jewish person, but they don't necessarily follow the religious rituals and practices. But they still might call themselves Jewish. But I really, I kind of call myself a Hindu.
Okay, that's fair. So are there any holidays, Jewish holidays, that you...
If I happen to be around my family, I will celebrate them with them. Sure, why not?
Are your parents still...
No, they would, they
Oh, when
would
you say
probably be about 100 years old if they were still alive.
Well, when you say your family,
Yeah.
family, that would mean children, but you would been raising them, so I figured parents, because it would be your choice how to...
Family means like my sister and her kids and
the mailman and people like that.
Yeah, like the mailman.
So, okay. So you are growing up in a semi-normal... Why do I do this? Semi-normal,
That's good.
middle-class-ish existence, right?
Mhm.
How do you go from that to being something of a hippie love child, slut child, as in American people?
Right. So it was the 60s.
Right.
And I was a hippie. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mhm.
And those of us who were hippies, or flower children, to
Flower
be more
chi-
specific.
Wait, is there a difference between a flower child and a hippie?
Sometimes it depends on what their philosophy is, really. But flower children, we were more into the whole idea of make love, not war.
Oh, yeah, I'm down
And
with that.
Also, we were into the whole idea of seeking spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment.
Well, I mean, I know Vietnam was going on, but was middle-class life so suffocating, so wrong that what we were all looking for that you couldn't find in watching TV, having a nice glass of refreshing beverage, and reading a paper, putting your feet up, and studying the Torah?
Right. So, yeah, we were seeking spiritual enlightenment. At that time, there were a couple of gurus at that time, we would call them gurus, would be Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, who later became Ram Dass.
Oh, okay.
And they wrote a book called The Psychedelic Experience. So we were exploring spiritual awakening through...
Weren't you afraid to try drugs?
Not
Didn't
at all.
that scare you?
No, not at all.
Well, tell me about, because I have never, and it's on my bucket list. Like, if I ever find a bucket with a drug in it, I might take the drug. But I've never taken a hallucinogen. Tell us either about your first experience or the scariest or most wonderful experience you've taken LSD or mushrooms or whatever.
Yeah,
Licking a frog.
I had some terrible experiences with LSD, and in fact had a mental breakdown as a result. But finally, my last LSD experience, I had a good experience.
Okay, wait,
frankly-
why? How would you, if you had a nervous breakdown, taking lysergic acid, diethylamide, do you think maybe you wouldn't try it again?
You would think.
You would think. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, I was so desperately seeking this experience of nirvana that that Richard Alpert and Timothy Leary kept telling us about, and they kept telling us turn on, tune in, drop out. So I was trying, I was experimenting like the rest of us back then. And so even though I had terrible experiences sometimes, I did have some good experiences, but eventually that led me to meditation.
Well, good. All right, but we'll get there. I promise we will get there. But
Okay.
so what did you dream? What was the most horrible nightmare you had or thing that may have made you psychotic when you took LSD?
Well, what happened was after I took the drug, I never came down from it.
Oh, okay.
And so I was walking
That's kind of
around.
like me with a pastrami sandwich. If I get a good one, I am high for days. I keep the fat on my shirt. I can still taste. Continue.
So I was walking around in a drugged state for weeks and weeks and weeks, and
Weeks on one, and you never took more. It was like that
Correct.
one tab or whatever.
correct. So I was continually having these what they call LSD flashbacks, and it was extremely disconcerting. I was in an altered state all the time, and it was terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you
I was
may have never.
hallucinating.
Some
It was
people never
terrifying.
come back. Some
Yeah.
people, they're crazy forever
Right,
from these things. Look at the Pink Floyd guy and those folks like that.
right.
Wow. But
So
you did.
Garrett, yeah. Mhm.
And it's, okay, so wow, the drugs, and you realized, hopefully, even though you did take it again, that there was something non-chemical that you could do to yourself to achieve.
Yeah, I was really seeking true meditation. I was really seeking true spiritual experiences. I was reading books like Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh yeah.
I was reading Buddhist scriptures. I was reading The Way of Zen and other works by Alan Watts. And in the books by Alan Watts, he was saying that you have to find a meditation guide.
A person who will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in 1966, and in the San Francisco area, good luck looking at the yellow pages for meditation
Right.
guide. I don't think so. So I asked a friend, well, how do I find this meditation guide? And he said, well, have you ever tried to just meditate on your own? And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I lay down on my bed. How clueless was I? I didn't even know you're supposed to sit up when you meditate. I lay down on my bed and I sort of,
Oi. It's working for me. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I sort of prayed for or asked for a meditation. And immediately I was propelled into an ecstatic state. I could feel this rush or cord of energy rushing from the tips of my toes all the way to the top of my head. And I felt like I was plugged into this cosmic electric socket, but in a most ecstatic way. And so I figured, well, I guess this is meditation. Little did I know that not only did I have my first meditation experience, but also Kundalini awakening at the same time.
That's the yoga thing, right there.
Right.
Again, there's yoga, and what's special about Kundalini?
Kundalini is
Do you
just,
have it with pasta sauce, or what is it? No.
yeah,
I don't know what
right.
that means. Yeah.
Exactly. So Kundalini is an energy, it's a subtle energy in your body that when it's awakened, you're experiencing spiritual enlightenment or spiritual higher states of consciousness, let's put it that way. So yeah, this rush of energy is indicative of Kundalini awakening in the
And you just did, and this was before you had a guide, by the way, where you meditated.
This
you had
was
that ecstatic
before.
before Kundalini, but you had this ecstatic moment.
right.
Come to Maharishi moment, in a manner of speaking. But then, if you were able to do that by yourself, you still felt the need or the desire to go see him. He came to California first, and then you went to India. What was the thing?
Well, I learned meditation from one of his teachers, actually.
Cool.
And then I did end up going to India in 1970, yeah.
And it was
And
like
studying with him
Yeah.
because I wanted to become a TM teacher. So TM means transcendental meditation. For those of you who not familiar with Maharishi and not familiar with TM or transcendental
I
meditation.
had a BM this morning. It was good. I feel really good after a BM. I don't know about TM.
Yeah, right.
And you. Yeah, we're just going to leave that.
It was too much information probably, but that's okay.
But here's the deal. So he was an inscrutable kind of fellow. You were always trying to impress him in some way. And sometimes you would feel a good spirit coming from him. Other times he'd sort of, not ignore you, but he'd give you kind of a shade eye. What was his deal in the early times?
Yeah. So he was a traditional Indian guru.
Okay.
And traditional Indian gurus don't act like normal people. They just don't act like people expect them to act. And in the East, in India, and in the Far East, people understand that the gurus are not going to act like you think they should. And
doesn't mean they're going to be rude and you just forgive them.
They could be rude. They can be.
That's a good deal.
They can be all kinds of strange things.
I would love that. I would love to get away with acting however I felt all the time. I was like, oh, he's a rabbi. It's right. No, he behaved like an asshole. That's good. That means you're on the path. No, come on. Was he ever nasty?
I wouldn't ever call him nasty. No, not nasty. No.
Nasty in bed? No, I'm kidding. What did you ever? Was there ever a no? Because that was the thing. That was the reason the Beatles left. Supposedly.
Right. One of the reasons. There are 3 reasons why the Beatles left.
Why did the Beatles leave?
Well, there's three reasons, and they were angry at him. One of the reasons had to do with a film deal that went awry.
What did that have to do with him?
Oh, well, okay. So Maharishi had promised the Beatles exclusive rights to do a film. He promised Apple Corps, which was the Beatles company, exclusive rights to do a film about him and about transcendental meditation.
So they wanted to make a movie about him?
Yes.
Okay.
They were going to do a movie about him, and they were talking about it when they were in India, doing this movie. But unfortunately, Maharishi had made the same promise to someone else.
Oh.
And someone else came to India with a signed contract with exclusive rights to film Maharishi for the next 5 years.
Oh, sexy Sadie. All right, so that's one reason the Beatles were.
That was one reason they. What happened was one morning, John Lennon opened his door to his bungalow, and he's like bedheaded and bleary-eyed and just woken up, and he opens the door, and what's in front of him but a cameraman and a director saying, "Action!"
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
And so this was the other film. This wasn't their film. This was some other film.
I'd be pissed off at that,
They
too.
were pretty angry about
So that was one reason.
Yeah.
Reason number 2?
Well, apparently Maharishi had made a pass at one of the women who was on the course.
No, we're not talking about Mia Farrow now. We're talking
We
about...
are not talking about Mia Farrow. We are not talking about Prudence Farrow.
Or Sunyi Previn, right?
We are talking about a woman named Rosalind Bonas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bonas gave him a boner. Did he go after her, or was that just a rumor, or what happened?
Okay, well, I believe that he went after her, yes.
Okay. I mean, he's a man.
He's a man.
He's not married to God or Vishnu or whatever,
right.
With all the respect you people believe in. But he's allowed to like girls.
Well, yeah, supposedly. But the reality was that he positioned himself as a life celibate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess if you position yourself as a life celibate, you just keep doing this. No, I'm kidding. But just pushing down there.
I hear you.
Yeah. So he was a hypocrite, and the Beatles saw through that.
Well, yeah.
Or they thought they saw through that.
Yes.
Did you? How did you feel about that? I mean, you were with him long after the Beatles left.
Yes. And he never made a pass at me. I didn't have that kind of relationship with him. And in fact, it wasn't till, I guess, around somewhere time in the 70s when I had heard about Mia Farrow, but Maharishi had made a pass at her. And then I personally knew some women that he had either made a pass at or that he had sex with.
Whoa. Okay, but also let's also be clear that we're not talking a Harvey Weinstein sort of thing where when you make a pass at a woman and she said no,
right?
It was like no,
right? No.
Some of them said yes, consensually.
Yes.
So that is different from the Me Too stuff that we're having now. It's just people were calling him a hypocrite because he had this celibacy vow, and meanwhile he was
exactly
a man. Okay, but you stayed with him through that, even knowing that.
No, I didn't actually. I don't think I was really aware of it at the time. It was only upon retrospect when I looked back, and then I spoke to some of the women who actually did have sex with him.
Okay, did they say it was good? I mean, all that yoga, he should be able to be really flexible. Usually the woman puts her legs behind her head. He can put his leg behind his head and around his tuchus. Anywho, what was the third reason the Beatles left?
Okay, so it didn't come out until 2006, the third reason.
Wow.
So what happened was George Harrison, it was 1991, I believe was the date, and
Yeah.
George Harrison contacted Deepak Chopra, who was very, very close to Maharishi at that time.
Okay.
And he asked if he could arrange for a meeting with Maharishi. So Deepak and George went to Vlodrop, Holland, where Maharishi was living at the time. And they had a meeting, and George said to Maharishi, I came to apologize. And Maharishi said, for what? And George said, you know why. And Maharishi said, okay, well, tell Deepak the story. So George proceeded to tell Deepak while they were in this meeting that when they were in the ashram, when the Beatles were in the ashram with Maharishi in Rishikesh, India, some people in their party were taking drugs, was drinking alcohol, and that definitely was not allowed in the ashram.
In the party of the Beatles or the party of Maharishi's people?
The Beatles
yeah, well,
party.
Yeah, sure.
Some of their people. And Maharishi got angry at that. He was very unhappy about that, and he asked them to leave. And they did leave. They left in a huff.
Right. Oh, so the Beatles didn't know the whole story back then of why? They just thought the Maharishi was sending these people off for no good reason? Why, why were the Beatles angry at him back then? Or...
Well, why were they angry at him?
Yeah, you said that was the third reason the Beatles took off.
Okay, the reason was that Maharishi told them to leave.
Oh, so, well, the entourage, not the Beatles.
No, the Beatles and...
Oh, and, so it's the same thing Maharishi said. Take your drugs, take your sex stuff. Most of your sex stuff. Keep some of the sex stuff here. But most of your sex stuff, the drugs, go, okay, all right. So, fair enough. I mean, yeah. So let me ask. You worked for Maharishi for what, 2 decades, was it?
I was on his staff for 6 years.
I thought you were there for like 2 decades.
I was in his ashrams, his various places that he, his learning institutions, those are called ashrams. I was in those for 2 decades.
Now he has ashrams. He's living in Hollywood. He's got you working for him. I'm sure he has other people. Where'd the money come from?
Okay, money. All right, so people think that Maharishi was incredibly wealthy or something. I worked in finance. Okay, when I was in Switzerland, when I was on his staff, I worked in finance. And all I saw was money coming in, money going out just as fast as it was coming in. Maharishi bought a lot of properties so that he could have centers all over the world. He spent a lot of money on a lot had
So, but was that hypocritical too? All
No,
these
he
never
had a
said
non-
anything anti-money, anti-capitalist, anti...
No, he had a nonprofit organization, and
so he was the CEO essentially of a nonprofit of a 501c3 or whatever that would be in Hindu numbers. Yeah,
I wouldn't call him a CEO, but he was the spiritual leader of this big organization. Yeah, 501c3.
And people donate, or they paid to take classes. Essentially, that's where the money came from.
Yes, that money came from the retreats and classes that were taught, and also fees for learning meditation. But there was really never enough money because, most nonprofit organizations, they have a subscription.
They're grant funded.
You
also.
have to, they're funded a lot, and also you have to pay a membership fee. Well, he never charged a membership fee. So I don't know that he really did a good job in setting up his organization because they were always having a problem with money because they said, okay, you can learn transcendental meditation, and then for the rest of your life you get free, you can come into any TM center and get free.
It's like Weight Watchers. If you maintain, I'm not joking, if you maintain a certain weight, you hit your goal weight, as it were, which I have not yet, obviously. You're for free. You can go to the meetings for free. You get you still have to buy the magazine and buy the crap.
Okay.
But it sounds kind of similar. They probably took that idea from the Maharishi. I'm not kidding.
But the fact was, you had free instruction for the rest of your life if you went into TM centers. So unfortunately, that caused a little bit of financial problems. And after Maharishi died, they had to sell off some of the property.
Some, they still exist, right? It's still there?
Yeah, absolutely still exists. In fact, it's having a little bit of a revival with the David Lynch Foundation.
Oh my goodness! The
David Lynch-
director from Twin Peaks and
Yes, him.
Huh.
Well, Hollander. So he founded this David Lynch Foundation, and a lot of celebrities are learning TM as a result of that.
Like
Katy Perry, Hugh Jackman, Cameron Diaz. There's a long, long list. As a matter of fact, in my book, this book here, Maharishi and Me,
from
I've
Atria Press.
I've got it's from Skyhorse.
Oh, Skyhorse.
So
okay, yeah.
it's got a list of about 250 major celebrities who have learned transcendental meditation, and you'd be really surprised at who's on that list.
Oh, who would be the most you're kidding?
Ivanka Trump and David Kushner.
David, who is that? The brother of Jared? Who's David Kushner?
That's Ivanka's husband.
Oh, the husband, right? Oh, right. No, Jared.
Jared Kushner.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you gotta get your Jews straight.
I gotta get my Jews straight.
So, all right. So they do meditation. They do, and you, I assume, still do. How much of a day do you spend doing meditation and/or yoga?
Okay, so I don't practice transcendental meditation anymore.
Okay.
I do something that I call divine revelation, which is what I teach.
Well, because you have a God thing involved in that. What is that? What do you mean?
Well, what I teach, which is called divine revelation, is about learning how to listen to the still small voice within, our intuitive voice, which is our higher self within us.
All right. How do you do that?
By listening, by getting quiet and still. First of all, getting quiet and still.
Very difficult for me, as you can see. All right, I'm quiet, I'm still.
And then the secret of really doing that is to ask a question, ask for guidance, ask for inspiration.
You just said the number's
healing.
15. It means that I asked. The answer is 15, apparently. don't know what the hell. No, but so how long is it? So you'll take a moment. How long does it take for you to go from 0 to 85, miles an hour? You say, okay, I'm taking this moment out of my day. I'm going to do divine.
10 seconds.
No, come on. I'm going to leave you alone for 10 seconds. I'll be quiet, I promise. And you're going to connect to some divine electricity.
Yes.
I am making fun, but I'm not making fun. You can really do that.
Yes.
I want to watch you do this. How long?
Well, there's nothing to see. It'll just be me with my eyes closed.
Oh, you're right. You close your eyes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, no, why absolutely?
Because when your senses are focused outward, when you're using the senses outward, like the eyes, for example, your focus is in that direction, outer direction. Whereas when you close your eyes, immediately you begin to go into an inner direction.
But the moment that it happens, does something happen? Do you glow? Does something happen in your butt?
I don't think you're going to really see anything special.
But what do you feel? What happens to you in your head?
What happens to me in my head is I feel an expansive experience of divine consciousness. I feel there's inner light. There's waves of love. There's waves of bliss. There's waves of grace.
When you were first looking for that,
experience.
it didn't take you 10 seconds. How long did it take you to hit the?
It didn't take me 10 seconds.
Yeah, your Godgasmic peak, as it were.
Right. So, for people just starting out with meditation, they may have 1 or 2 experiences of that during a 30-minute meditation, something like that, or 20-minute meditation. They might have 1 or 2 experiences of that expanded consciousness during that time.
Now, how is that so different from the electricity you felt when you did TM?
Okay, so TM is also a wonderful experience, and it is a method that really works. It's really powerful, and it does work. And I do recommend it to people, especially beginners, because it's so easy to practice.
A lot of times I'll try, but I can't block out the world. I'll laugh at something. I'll think of a joke. I'll think of something terrible.
Right. So the important thing to understand is that you don't need to block anything out.
Okay.
All you need to do is relax. Just get
Good
quiet.
luck. I'm Jewish. All right.
But it's easy to do that if you take deep breaths.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. If you take deep breaths, this kind of breath like, and you really let go.
Not easy.
You really let go as you're breathing out. Then you'll go into a deeper and deeper quiet state of consciousness. And I think the deep breaths are really help people to go deep into meditation.
Now, can I ask you, as you said, you worked for the Maharishi for 6 years.
I did.
Why did you stop working?
Actually, he sent me away. He told me I was too dependent on him at that time.
Okay.
He said, this was a quote from him. He said, "You're too dependent on me as a person." He said, "I won't always be here." Because I was very devoted to him. I was very dependent on him. And he really felt that I was too dependent on him. So he said, get thee hence. He said,
do you have any funny, cute Maharishi anecdote stories? I mean, you worked with him. You must have seen him almost every day, talked with him, and when he became less inscrutable and more like just, your boss. Any cool Maharishi stories?
Well, he was such a, okay. So his philosophy was that you could help a person to become stronger or to develop themselves more in many different ways, spiritually, but also even in practical ways, if you kind of push people to their limit. So, for example, there was one guy, and he was at the ashram. He was trying to build some, he was trying to make heat go into the very primitive dwellings that in the ashram. So he was
really like with pipes and things.
With pipes.
With
pipes. The idea was that they would boil water and then the pipes would bring steam into the rooms. So he had some facility and he knew how to do that. So Maharishi assigned him to do that. But after he did that, and then he was, during the process, he was like, he had already made holes in the wall to make the pipes come in and everything. And Maharishi goes in back of the buildings and he's telling the guy, okay, well, we should move the pipes this way and move them that way, and they should come like this. And he would keep telling the guy to do it over and over and over and change it all the time.
Yeah, you can't do feng shui with heating.
So the guy, really, it was his last straw. He really... When Maharishi was just pushing him to his limit, he trotted up the path to the dining room, to the smoker's dining room. There were 3 dining rooms. One was silent dining room, one was just regular dining room, one was smoker's dining room. So he went to the smoker's dining room and he yelled. He grabbed the first guy he could see. He said, "Give me a fag! Give me a fag, mate! This guy is driving me nuts! Give me a fag!"
Fag meaning cigarette, by the way. It's a different time and era. Yeah, unless hey,
he was British.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the kind of experience that all of us who worked for him had. In other words, he would, for example, he had me drawing this painting that is in the book. Oh. You can see a picture of it in the book.
Talk about it.
And he had me do this drawing, and then he had me change it, and then change it again, and then change it again, and change it again, this one here. And I kept doing the drawing over and over and over again, this one here, until finally it became kind of a good drawing. Yeah. And in fact, I got kind of good at doing drawing and painting as a result of it. So he was really pushing me to my creative limit by telling me to do things over and over and over. But this is the type of thing that gurus do in India. It's traditional. There's this ancient story about a saint named Milarepa, and his guru was Marpa, and it was a Tibetan Buddhist monk. Okay. And in that story, the guru kept telling the disciple to build these various houses of different shapes, and he would have him build a house, and then when he was done building the house, he made him take every brick and every dirt, everything, and put it back in its original
place. That's sadism. That is not learning anything. That's just cruelty in the name of, I don't know. Do you get that?
Well, it is believed in India that this is the way that gurus help their disciples to burn off karma. And what that means is that the person, by the guru doing, I know this is a very strange concept, but I'll try to explain it.
Yeah.
So the idea is that a person has done something in their past, maybe past lives or past this life, and that person has consequences of those actions. And the law of karma states that in the future, you'll have a consequence from whatever action you did in the past.
Fine. Okay, that's
Okay,
a nice way of keeping people not killing each other on Earth.
Exactly. So that's the idea of karma, the law of karma. So it's believed in India and in Tibet and other places in the Far East that it's possible for a guru to ameliorate the effects of karma for a disciple by doing something to the disciple, by having the disciple do strange things, or by even maybe getting mad at the disciple or making the disciple doing something to the disciple that will that the consequence of that would be that in the future the disciple has less of this karmic consequence in their life.
With all due respect, this is already bordering on, to me, horseshit. I mean,
Right,
why
sure.
not tell a disciple, oh, you want good karma? Go feed people. Go. You want to build a building? Build a homeless shelter and leave it. Let it be there so homeless people can live in it. Sorry, I'm just, this already is pushing, but it's not what you do. You help people now,
right?
In getting in touch and doing the divine revelation things. How do people get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. My website is drsusan.org. That's simple enough.
Dr. Susan. I'm glad you got that website.
Yeah.
That was a good one that you latched onto for the URL. drsusan.org.
Correct.
And like the kind of things that you would teach, they would go to for like 12 lessons or a lifelong. What do you offer?
Mainly, most of the things people can learn from my books. It's really not that hard to learn everything
what are some
I
of
teach
your
in
other
my
book
books.
titles?
Okay, my books are, I have 14 books in print.
Gewalt. Yeah, Mazel Tov.
So Divine Revelation is one of the books. Awaken Your Divine Intuition is another one. A Miracle Prayer.
Oh, I like that. A Miracle Prayer. Okay.
Instant Healing. Ascension.
Instant healing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like my good friend Dave, I've been suffering with back trouble for about 3 weeks now. I wake up in the morning, I can barely stand. Heal me. Or teach me to heal myself.
Yeah, it's more about teaching you to heal yourself.
All right, teach me to heal my back. I also have a boo-boo on my finger. Look at that, that hurts.
Yeah.
I caught that on opening a coffee can the other day. So, can I heal this?
It's going to heal itself anyway. I mean.
Well, yeah. Oh, good answer. Come on.
That's the truth.
All right, well, what about the back here, which will also eventually heal itself?
So the problem with the back is that you don't feel you have enough support in your life.
Ooh. So it's a mental thing as much as
It's a mental thing. A lot of problems that we have in our lives are based upon mental problems or mental causes.
All right.
So you can change those through doing specific affirmations that I teach in that specific book. Instant Healing is really great for that.
So it's like, I am loved, I am supported.
Right.
The world, the universe likes me.
Yeah, those types of affirmations can help you with your problem with your lower back.
What is your favorite daily affirmation?
I am in control. I am the only authority in my life. I am divinely protected by the light of my being. I close off my aura and body of light to the lower astral levels of mind, and I open to the spiritual world. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Well, that's not. But the thing is, you keep coming back to God. So you are a theist.
Yes.
Was Maharishi a theist?
Yes, he was a theist. He believed in God, definitely.
And his conception of God, though, was it the same as Old and New Testament, or was it just Supreme Being?
Okay.
Or
His conception of God had two aspects. One is the absolute, which is basically the same God that's worshipped in Judaism, for example.
Right. Yeah.
The idea of the impersonal God that is absolute, that is unbounded, unlimited, was never born, never dies.
Cranky sometimes.
Has no boundaries. No, it's not cranky. So that
Judaism has a cranky God.
Well, that's the other aspect of God, the personal aspect of God.
Oh.
So Maharishi believed in two aspects of God: that absolute Sat Chit Ananda, absolute bliss consciousness, And he also believed in the personal aspect or aspects of God. And in Judaism, they believe in a personal aspect of God as well.
So that you have a personal connection, as it were.
Personal
He doesn't
connection.
talk to. Well,
Personal connection.
do you talk to when you have these divine revelations? Does God talk to you, or you just have sort of a feeling?
Okay, it's actually I get three ways. That
Always
I
with a number: 2 of this, 3 of that, 4 of that. That's like a Chinese restaurant here. All right.
There's 3 ways.
Yeah.
Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, meaning getting visions,
Uh,
hearing an inner voice, which means words coming
not
to me.
psychosis, but inner voice of words.
Inner voice.
Yeah.
And the third one is inner feelings, like gut feelings.
Oh, so you trust your gut. There's something you're
Right.
something tells you.
Intuition.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I believe that intuition is the divine voice speaking to us.
Oh, okay. And so 90-something% of the time when you listen to your gut and it's the right choice, you think?
Yes, it is.
That's not a joke. I'm saying
Yeah.
where you trust your judgment when you have to make a big choice or
Right.
something, and you listen,
I listen.
and generally
I
almost
always
always.
listen whenever I have to make any kind of choice, especially major choices. I go into meditation and I actually ask and I receive guidance.
Sounds good. I mean, there are things I make fun of, and there are other things that sound like, that's a reasonable way to live your life and to connect with whatever is out there. Do you have you mentioned your family? Do you have kids? Do you have
No, I've never had kids.
Because I wonder
I've
how you
never
would-
been married.
Oh, wow. Not that matters, but
Right.
do you see that? Are you glad about that, or do you sort of wish?
I'm very glad about that.
Even the kids part, even though.
Yes, I've never, even as a child, I never had a desire to have kids.
And yet you help so many people. Maybe that's where that energy.
Yeah, I mean, my books are my kids.
Among the books are the ones that you mentioned just before with all the names. Tell them again. Well, first of all, they can get them at drsusan.org, right?
They should just go to Amazon
Oh,
to get the books.
Get them on
Less
Amazon.
expensive. It takes less time to get them.
All right, Amazon, look for Dr. Susan Shumsky, SHUMSKY, for the many books she's mentioned, and this most recent one, and we're right between us there, Maharishi and Me, which is published by Skyhorse Publishing. So SP is it's not like a vanity thing. This is a real book thing, Maharishi and Me. The subtitle, Seeking Enlightenment with the Beatles Guru. Last question before I let you go. So do you think, God willing, you still have maybe 20, 30 years left on this planet, yeah? Do you think you'll stay with divine revelation, or is there another step? Is there another meditation thing, another connection thing that you're looking for even beyond?
I'm not really seeking another method or anything like that. I can, of course, have greater, deeper and greater experiences with meditation and with getting closer to that divine presence on a daily basis, maybe more of the day, feeling that connection, feeling that wholeness, that oneness, that divine love. I think probably the most important thing to me is to experience that connection as much as possible. So,
well,
and to help others experience it. That's my mission. My goal is to help people to have that experience.
Well, you've heard it. You'll be reading it from Dr. Susan Shumsky. I'm delighted to have had this connection with you here in the Daverhood today. It only remains for me, Rabbi Saul Solomon, to wish you more divine revelations, more joy, more connection with the universe, and health and good times too. Good things. And I will still say, a good pastrami sandwich. Meditation's fine, all of that's good, but that good pastrami sandwich. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And shalom to you.
Shalom to you.
I'm going to go see her out. You go talk to yourself. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, it's Dave here. Thank you so much. It was such a delight. Thank you.
Such a delight.
And are you
Thank
going to leave? Oh, great. I can I'll
Yes,
give
you
away a
can
copy
give
of that
away.
book. Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks.
All right. right.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Great to meet you too. Thank you.
Welcome back to Dave's Gone By. Here in the go figure, the rabbi and I wear the same exact shirt. Who would ever imagine it? We're here live on this Saturday, July. What the hell day is it? It is July 14th, 2018. And we are doing the 659th episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream. That was the delightful Susan Shumsky with us. And yes, she did leave us a copy of her book, Maharishi and Me. Did she? Oh, she didn't sign it. But yeah, later on, I'm going to figure out a way where you can win a free copy of this book. And again, it's part meditation stuff and learning how to do what she does, but it's also her story. Right, and it's also her years with the Maharishi. She talks about these guys, the Beatles there, and all the others. A pretty picture of Mia Farrow in there somewhere. So, you know, again, it is not. It's sort of a tell-all, but if you're looking for dirt, if you're looking for something that muck rakes the Maharishi, as it were, this is not the book for you. This is really about someone who really still loved and respected this man as a teacher, as a person. So if you're want to read that, we'll let you know. You can go buy the book on Amazon, but we'll give information on how a lucky listener can win the book later in the broadcast. Woo! So great job, by the way, Rabbi Sal, for doing that interview. And Rabbi Sal will be with us a little later on again, because he will be talking to legendary jazz master pianist Dick Hyman, who is the NEA called him literally a jazz master. What else can I tell you about Dick Hyman? Who'll be coming up shortly in the Daverhood. Where is he? Here he is. What are my notes on him? He has an honorary doctorate from Juilliard. I mean, if you can imagine how hard it is for students to get into Juilliard, this guy, they gave him an honorary doctorate, which is way cool. He's been sampled in a bunch of rap songs. And he will be at the 92nd Street Y up on Lexington Avenue and 92nd Street on July 18th. So just a couple of days from now, Dick Hyman, also with a couple of other musicians, including Bill Charlap, will be doing a show called The Elegant Piano, saluting Teddy Wilson, Tommy Flanagan, and Hank Jones, happening at the 92nd Street Y in Manhattan on July 18th. And it's really particularly special that they're saluting Teddy Wilson, because he took lessons with the great Teddy Wilson from Benny Goodman's band way, way back in the day. So lots of fun stuff to talk to Dick Hyman about. Rabbi Saul will be doing that a little later in the broadcast. We will also have our Saturday segue of songs in the news. We'll have a Colorado Limerick of the Damned for you. And yes, more cow, more Hansel in the Daverhood. Yes, we're getting close to finishing the book. We're about 3/4 of the way through A Cow for Hansel, so you don't want to miss more of that. It's 10:09 a.m. in the Daverhood. Time to move away from internal spiritual life to external joy and delight, because that's what happens to me when I go see something good at the theater, which is one of the reasons that every week we do a segment here called... Wow, sorry. I gotta find it now. Hold on. Oh, iTunes. Help me out here. There we go. Inside Broadway. Inside Broadway, a look at theater on and off Broadway and beyond. Brought to you by Total Theater and Performing Arts Insider. Curtain going up. Yeah. Inside Broadway we go. Every week here in the Daverhood, because, you know, I've been a theater critic literally now for 30 years. And I've also been a theater journalist and an actor and a director, all that sort of thing. So I do love Broadway. I do love sharing my love of the lively arts, the performing arts, and sharing them with you here in the Daverhood every week. And so let me angle this sort of a more better angle there. Kinda. Looks very different this week from what we usually do, but that's okay. Anyway, oh, somebody gave a thumbs up for theater. I wonder who that is. And by the way, welcome to Billy and Tony and Kathy and Jim and Bert and Craig and, oh, my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, said, excellent interview. And she's not a fan of the Rabbi. And for her to say that was an excellent interview, thank you. Thank you, hon. Anyway, I'm a fan of the Rabbi and a big fan of Broadway. So it's surprisingly active in Broadway theater now, even though we're in the middle of July and we're far away from the upcoming Broadway season. And yet there's a lot of news to share with you. Some good, some bad. We'll give you all of it here in the Daverhood. So we begin with a real, kind of, I won't say a shock, but a big surprise on Broadway this week. SpongeBob SquarePants, the musical, which has been making very good money and which looked pretty good on the Tony Awards. I assume they got a nice boost at the box office when they had big, Squidward dancing at the Tony Awards. And yet, SpongeBob SquarePants, the musical, has announced that it is going to close at the Palace Theater on Broadway after 29 previews and 327 regular performances. So it will have run a bit less than a year, and it will not, technically it's not a hit, it's losing several $1 million. One imagines it will make a pile touring, but I don't know, Ethan Slater is a new Broadway star now for playing SpongeBob. They did win a Tony. David Zinn won for the set design of the show. Tina Landau got a host of plaudits for her direction of the musical. And the score is by a whole pastiche of artists, people like Cyndi Lauper and Steven Tyler and David Bowie, Joe Perry. They took songs from all these different folks. And the reviews were, when SpongeBob opened a few months ago, reviews were, the critics were surprisingly pleased. They had hedged their bets and they had reservations, but they went in and they saw the whole conception of it and the direction and the design by Landau and the designer there, David Zinn, that they said, oh, wow, this is a lot better than it had to be. This is better than we thought it was going in. We thought this would just be a really cynical, cheap ploy for Nickelodeon to muscle in on Broadway and bring the kids in. And, oh, look, SpongeBob's on stage, whoopee. But no, there was real art going on here. But at the same time, it's been making good money, but still under $1 million. And you would figure making $700,000, $800,000, $9,000 a week, grossing, not net, but gross, that should be good for a musical, right? But it's not enough. And maybe there's a show that really wants that theater. So that's why the theater owners were kind of muscling SpongeBob out. And also, unless I'm mistaken, the Palace Theater is scheduled for a remodeling. This is the one we talked about last week where they're going to lift the actual theater up 3 stories in the air, like 29 feet, and then put retail on the ground floor. So SpongeBob would have either had to kind of move upward with it or move to another theater. And I guess the sales are a little too soft for it to do that. And at the same time, they figure once they're going to have to close the theater down for a while, once they reopen it, they're going to want a new show in there. But whatever the reason, SpongeBob is going to close on September 16th, after a little over 300 performances, but they will be touring as of fall 2019. Well, another show that is closing, but this is expected, and it's a show that probably could run easily a few more weeks, but it's got a couple of big stars in the cast, and so their contracts are up, and that is why Angels in America, a gay fantasia on national themes, is ending its very much acclaimed revival run on Broadway tomorrow at the Neil Simon Theater. So you just have Today matinee tonight and then one more show tomorrow, and then Angels is gone. Of course, Nathan Lane is in there. Andrew Garfield is in there as well, as is UNC alumnus Beth Malone playing the angel. The plot takes on Reaganism and McCarthyism and immigration and religion and climate change and, of course, AIDS in 1980s New York. It was a reminder of just how big and epic and important the play was. I did not get to see it when I was in Manhattan, unfortunately, but you have a couple more chances to see Angels in America on Broadway. Now, here's a show that was hoping to come to Broadway a while back and then was stopped in its tracks and now may actually get a real shot in the months ahead. It's called Whose Holiday? Not with a question mark, but with an exclamation point. Whose Holiday? Because, get this, it's a one-person show all about Cindy Lou Who. And she is a character in Whoville of Horton Hears a Who, How Horton Hatches the Egg, the Dr. Seuss stories, and apparently she's now run down trailer trash. And she's talking about all the denizens of Whoville and folks like that. It's supposed to be very funny, very dark comedy, solo comedy, featuring Leslie Margarita as the actress. It's written by a playwright named Matthew Lombardo. So that's the deal, okay? They wanted to bring this to Broadway. What has been standing in its way? Well, what do you think? The estate of Dr. Seuss, who said, no, you can't do this. You're dealing not so much with copyrighted material, but trademarked material. So you can't make fun of it. And apparently the courts ruled that, hey, satire, we can. It was like when the Seuss people went after that guy. Remember, I used to play Dylan Hears a Who? Some of the songs of Dylan-esque parodies of, they weren't really even parodies. They were taking the Dr. Seuss books and putting them to Dylan-esque music, Dylan-esque songs sung by a guy imitating Dylan's voice. They're actually quite great. It's called Dylan Hears a Who. And it wasn't Dylan's people who put the kibosh on it, but Dr. Seuss's people who said, no, copyrighted material, we don't want our stuff being handled in that way. You can still find some of the songs on YouTube, I believe, and they're definitely worth seeking out. But here's a similar situation of Dr. Seuss or his heirs being incredibly protective of the Seuss characters and the Seuss books, and saying, no, Matthew Lombardo, you can't produce this on Broadway, but now apparently they can, so that they are looking to bring it. It was actually, they tried it out at the West Side Theater off Broadway a couple of months ago, but they're looking at Broadway late in this year, and we'll keep you posted. And we also, I don't know how I feel about this, because I do have my issues of political correctness run amok. And there's been a little bit of that on Broadway this past week. A decision was handed down from Actors Equity, which is the actors union, the Broadway union there for performers, about the gypsy robe. Here, I'll actually have a robe, but I do have the rabbi's coat, so I can make a visual on this. The famed gypsy robe. Now, this is a beautiful Broadway tradition, and what that is the dancers, the singers, the chorus people on Broadway. From show to show, they hand down a ceremonial kind of traditional robe, like what the actors throw on when they're changing. And it means one show gives it to another on opening night. It's a beautiful ceremony that literally stretches back to the 1950s. And they call it, and they do a little ritual. They turn around, they hand it to an actress, and then the robe stays for maybe a day or two until the next Broadway opening, and then the robe is handed down. Now, it isn't the same robe, because it would be really gross and stinky and crawling with moths and larvae in it by now. So they've got one of the robes in the Smithsonian, they've got another at the Lincoln Center Library, so they use some different robes to do this. But still, the idea of it is this handing down of tradition, of saying, we've opened a Broadway show, we're part of this incredible legacy of Broadway, and now your turn. Good luck, one sword, break a leg on opening night. But the times we live in, the word gypsy started to become kind of loaded in a negative way, because it's called a gypsy robe because it's itinerant. It moves, just like Broadway chorus people and dancers. They'll stay with a show for a couple of months. They'll hope it's a hit. Maybe they'll be there for a week or two and they're gone. And then they're auditioning again, and then they're in another show until they hit their 30s, 40s, whatever, and they're just too old to do that anymore. But it's this legacy. It's the story of real Broadway musicals. It's not just the stars. It's all, I'm the star of this broadcast, But what would it be without all my potato friends, my gypsy taters? So they're called gypsies because they wander, they're itinerant. But now it's a bad idea calling it gypsy because it's making fun somehow of gypsies, which because singing and dancing and making people happy in the theater is such a terrible connotation to lay upon a race of people, right? But the powers that be at Actors Equity said we want to be just like the Cleveland Indians should probably change their mascot. And years ago, Aunt Jemima changed the way Aunt Jemima looked on the bottle, right? Let's change this. And now they're going to call the gypsy robe, they're changing the name to the legacy robe. All right. That's not bad. If you're going to have a compromise like that, that's a pretty good one. The legacy robe. Ooh, the tradition shall still continue, which is kind of cool. All I have to ask is if they're going to bring back, as they do every 10 years, Stephen Sondheim and Arthur Lawrence show Gypsy. What do they call it now? Legacy? Well, the point is, she's called Gypsy Rose Lee because she goes from place to place and she's also sexy like a gypsy dancer. They're going to change that? I don't know. Are they going to... There's even, I swear to God, there's a show coming up on Broadway in just a couple of weeks, the Cher Show, all about Cher Bono Ullman's life and her career on TV and her career in movies and as a singer. Is she the actress gonna sing Legacy's Tramps and Thieves? I'm sorry, I'm stupid. It's stupid, but as a compromise, legacy robe, okay, I'll do. I have to say, I just had a very weird moment because someone with my name just logged on to watch the program, but I realized it's not me. There are other people with my name. So welcome, David Lefkowitz, to the Daverhood, and also David and Jay and Kathy and Jim and Bert and Greg and all the other folks who are listening live on this Saturday, July 14th, 2018, to the 659th episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of The Stream. I'm Dave Lefkowitz, and before we continue with Inside Broadway, I do want to remind you that we couldn't do this segment without the fine folks at Total Theater. David Lefkowitz says hi. This is so meta. David Lefkowitz is saying hi back. We couldn't do it without Total Theater, which puts out, first of all, the wonderful free website totaltheater.com, which has thousands of theater reviews, Broadway, off-Broadway, off-Broadway, regional theater, international theater, and festivals. It's just a cornucopia, absolutely free to surf and use for research. So if you go to the Criticopia section, you can read reviews of all the current Broadway shows and some off-Broadway and regional theater too. If you go to the Periodica section, there's actually articles and interviews with people making theater all over the world. And we've been complaining for the past few months that the search engine function on the website is kind of hinky. Well, guess what? We've started compiling a list, a master list of every show reviewed on the website. And it's all on one quick page. We've gone back now about 8 or 9 years. We want to get to the very beginnings of the site. But so if you're looking for a show or if you like a particular theater critic, it becomes real easy again to search and find what you are looking for. Just there's a line right on the homepage that says master list here, or jump to the Criticopia section, or jump to the what's new section for links to reviews of shows that are currently running all over the country and all over the world. Totaltheater.com is the place to go. Now, Total Theater, the company, also puts out a hard copy journal, a journal that has been around since 1944, a journal that lists every single play and musical on, off, and off Broadway, and all the information along with them. It's called Performing Arts Insider, and it has been the Bible of Broadway. It remains so, because look what you get in every single issue of this magazine. You've got, here's that first, or the inside first page. I'll do it this way to show you've got a guide to the current Broadway season, all the shows when they're starting previews or opening, and the shows that are still running from last season, a little map of the Broadway district. Plus, you go to the next page, a guide to all the Broadway theaters. Like, how do I make this work? Okay. Every theater what's playing in it, how long is it playing, what's coming into that theater after that show closes. And if you happen to be a Broadway producer or want to be producer, what Broadway theaters are open and waiting for a show to come into them. There aren't that many because they're pretty high trafficked, but still, that's what you get on that page. And then we move on to a guide to all the press agents. So if there is a Broadway show running and you want to know how to get in touch with the people involved, best place to go is the press agents, the folks who handle the publicity for those shows. Then you get a listing of every Broadway show, opening, closing previews. You get the same listings for every show on, off, and off Broadway. And then, there's even in this issue a regional theater guide, but the big column comes when we start getting to the comprehensive listings of every single show. Look at all that information about Anastasia right there. These are all the producers and their contact information. The press agent is their stage manager, general manager, the actors, the designers, the tech people, the synopsis, contact information as well as there, plus the theater, the dates that it's running. That is for every single show. So there's about 200 or shows listed in every issue of Performing Arts Insider. To find out more, go to performingartsinsider.com, performingartsinsider.com. It's an expensive publication, no question, but the people who subscribe renew over and over because they know that's the only place they can get everything they need to know about Broadway and off in Performing Arts Insider, the Bible of Broadway. Well, let's get back to inside Broadway with more news and information about the theater that we love. Now, we just mentioned the surprise of SpongeBob SquarePants declaring that it will close in late September. Okay, no shock. And then we mentioned the no shock of Angels in America closing after its intended run. Now we have the reverse. We've got the play that goes wrong going continually right. See, the play that goes wrong announced that it was going to close on August 26th at the Lyceum Theater. It had a surprisingly long run. People really enjoy it. They love it. They have a great time. It's funny. And so this show that was only supposed to run a few weeks coming from England kept extending and people kept going to see it. But then, the summer was going to be over, all these new shows coming in the new Broadway season. So now the producers are saying, they were going to close on August 26th. And then they said, you know what? We're doing very well. And people are still coming to see it and wanting to see it, even when the fall comes. So they have rescinded the closing notice for the play that goes wrong. And instead, now they're going to stay open all the way until the 6th of January, right after the holidays. So you have many, many more weeks to go to the Lyceum Theater to see the play that goes wrong from Mischief Theatre Company of London. And it's, I saw the show. I didn't laugh that much. I kind of wish it were funnier, much of a muchness. But most of the people around me were having the time of their lives. So go see for yourself the play that goes wrong. It's all about an accident-prone drama society putting on a murder mystery where literally everything goes wrong. So check it out. And by the way, I do have to say that the same theater company, Mischief, has a show in London now about a bank robbery where everything goes completely wrong. And I saw a scene from that on some English TV show, and it was hilarious. So hopefully that'll be coming to Broadway once the play that goes wrong goes away. But it's still here, so you might want to check it out. And hey, a show that isn't going away anytime soon at all, Wicked, the Broadway musical. And this was a show that I loved before a lot of the Broadway theater critics did. They had their reservations. And I said, no, this thing is great. It's got spectacle. It's got heart. And I can't believe it opened all the way back in 2003. In late October, just before Halloween, Wicked opened. And it is still there. And this past week, 2 days ago, Wicked became the 6th longest running Broadway show in history. It passed back in February, Oh Calcutta, to become the 7th longest running. And then amazingly enough, it just passed a chorus line, the original chorus line, to hit number 6 with performance number 6,138. Since opening, Wicked has grossed more than $4.5 billion globally. 55 million people have seen it. And just so you know, just if you're keeping tabs and keeping track, so it's at number 6. It's going to be a while before it can make another move, but here we go. Here's, let's see, number 5. So the next one up the ladder is Les Mis. The original Les Mis ran 6,680 performances. So if Wicked runs another year and a half, which it is likely to, it will pass the original Les Mis to reach number 5. Then the next run on the ladder after that, of course, is Cats with more than 7,000 performances. So it'll be a while before Wicked reaches that one. Number 3, The Lion King. Now, The Lion King is still running. Lion King has 8,600 performances. So it could be a decade before Lion King closes and anything can even catch that. So no. And then number 2, Chicago. Chicago actually reached performance number 9,000 this weekend, either yesterday or Thursday or today. Chicago is hitting number 9,000. That's still running. And of course, the champion, and I realize now it will not be dethroned in my lifetime. I don't see how it can be. But the number 1 all-time longest running show is The Phantom of the Opera is here. Yep, Phantom of the Opera, which has 12,670 performances. Oh, been running since the 1980s, so that will happen. I mean, but again, think about that. Think about Wicked has been running since 2003, 6th longest running show on Broadway now, and it has 6,000 plus performances. Phantom of the Opera has double. That should tell you something. But anyway, congratulations certainly to Wicked on this big milestone. And one last piece of news for Inside Broadway on this Saturday, July 14th, 2018. Here on Dave's Gone By, where it's just a little bit after 10:30 in the morning Mountain Time. Gotta say a fond farewell to Arthur Andrew Kelm. Arthur Andrew Kelm. Doesn't ring a bell? Well, the studio gave him this other name, Tab Hunter, who passed away last Sunday at the age of 86 from a heart attack. Tab Hunter, Rabbi Saul will be kind of happy to know this. He's German and a little bit of Jewish in his background. Who knew? His dad was abusive, so his mom divorced him very, very early on. Hunter ended up being sent to Catholic school. He became a Catholic. He was a figure skater for a while. At 15, he tried to join the Coast Guard. He did, but then they found him out and sent him home. And then he just kind of drifted into acting. He was a very good-looking, all-American, blonde, well-built young man. So he got a bunch of small roles. Warner Brothers signed him in the mid-1950s, and he was in hit movies like Sea Chase and Battle Cry. He did a Playhouse 90, the live TV stuff they were doing. He recorded music. He had a #1 hit on Billboard with a song called Young Love back in, I'm not sure what year that was. He acted with people like Rita Hayworth and Gary Cooper. Why am I talking about him on Inside Broadway? Well, he was in the movie version of Damn Yankees, of course, with Gwen Verdon and Ray Walston, and he played Joe Hardy, the young baseball player guy, and he's on the soundtrack album as well. I didn't realize this. Tab Hunter tried out for Tony in West Side Story. He didn't get it because he doesn't read Puerto Rican to me, just saying. But he did get a TV series instead. And then he did get on Broadway. He was not on Broadway in Damn Yankees, but he was in a 1964 flop revival of a Tennessee Williams play called The Milk Train Doesn't Stop Here Anymore, featuring Tallulah Bankhead and Marion Seldes, excuse me. Then he did more movie roles in the 1960s. He did a lot of dinner theater and summer stock. He moved to France for a while. And then, of course, he is an icon for gay people because of his looks and because he was the boyfriend for a long time of Anthony Perkins, the psycho guy. And he was a partner for many years of Alan Glazer. They were a couple for many, many years. Now, it's not like he kicked the door open. He was as closeted as anybody else and nearly married a couple of people. But later on in his career, it was the secret was essentially out to the point where first movie I ever saw him in was Polyester, the John Waters film with Divine. And then it was that transitional Waters film that went from things like Pink Flamingos and Female Troubles to Crybaby, and Hairspray. So that was the middle one with Odorama, the scratch and sniff. I saw it in the theater with Odorama. But anyway, Tab Hunter was in that. He was in Lust in the Dust. He was in Grease 2. And I guess the last thing really to say about him is that the playwright who wrote I Am My Own Wife, that very good Broadway play, Doug Wright, he is attached to, and I guess writing the screenplay for, a biopic of Tab Hunter and of his life. So I've got a bit of a rarity to play. I'll play as much of it as Facebook will allow me. But Tab Hunter was on TV in a live TV musical that they did of Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates. It featured songs by Hugh Martin. Now, he's the guy who wrote the score for Meet Me in St. Louis with Ralph Blaine, not too shabby. It was directed by, of all people, Sidney Lumet, before he started making all of those gritty New York movies. So from the 1958 NBC Live broadcast of a TV musical featuring Peggy King and also Basil Rathbone, the Sherlock Holmes guy, here's Tab Hunter singing a song called Hello Springtime.
The winter was fine for skating, the mercury fell to 10, but now and then I would get in to be nice and warm again. They said that the spring was coming, that soon a lark would be heard, and then they'd sneeze and their lips would freeze in the middle of a word. We shivered and shuddered and shook. Now all of a sudden, look. Hello, springtime, where have you been? Good old springtime, come on in. It's time we put away those snowshoes, and pretty soon we'll feel like wearing no shoes. Hello, sunlight, shine on down. We're all glad you're back in town. Goodbye, winter. Everybody sing hello, spring.
Bit of Tab Hunter there on Dave's Gone By, a farewell to him, but a hello to one of the legends of jazz music, jazz piano music. We're very proud and excited to have with us, talking to Rabbi Saul Solomon in the Daverhood, Dick Hyman.
Hi, this is Dick Hyman. I'm speaking with Rabbi Saul Solomon on Dave's Gone By.
Oh, shalom, my friends and my music aficionados. This is your old pal, Rabbi Saul Solomon, talking to you because I'm all jazzed today, because we're going to be talking jazz, specifically jazz piano and keyboard, with a man who is an absolute master at it. As a matter of fact, he was named a jazz master by the National Endowment for the Arts. He was the former jazz artistic director of the 92nd Street Y. He has an honorary degree from Juilliard, and he has done the music, composed and arranged it for movies like Moonstruck and a dozen Woody Allen films. He has been sampled in rap songs by De La Soul, Busta Rhymes, Beck, and Kanye West. As a matter of fact, just a year ago this week, Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York declared July 18th, 2017, Dick Hyman Day. Well, why not have him a year later with us on the phone in the Daverhood? Dick Hyman, welcome and shalom to you.
Well, shalom to you, Rabbi, and thank you very much. I'm glad to be with you.
Oh, and so glad to have you with us. So the first question has to be from me. So I assume you're Jewish, but do you follow? How Jewish are you?
Well, I am what is called Reformed Jewish, but I've been Jewish all my life. I've had a bar mitzvah. I've been to Israel 3 times, and those are my qualifications.
So how do Israelis respond to jazz music differently, let's say, from Americans and other places you've played?
Oh, well, it has been a number of years since I've been there, but my impression from that time is that they were very enthusiastic, perhaps not quite as informed of the latest developments, which is certainly understandable, but their enthusiasm makes up for that.
What are the latest developments in jazz? Because if you ask the average person, and I am a very, very average person, I kind of lost track after Miles Davis and maybe Herbie Hancock and people like, I haven't really paid attention, shame on me, to jazz for 30 years. What's new?
What's new? Well, I have to say that I am not the most qualified person to answer that question, since more and more I feel myself getting slightly behind the times. But I believe it's further amalgamation of the style of John Coltrane in the playing of various more contemporary players. It's a growing, to my observation, it's a growing relationship with the pop music of the last 20 years, an attempt, as always, to incorporate some of the newer rhythms into jazz performing.
It's interesting that you would comment on that, because you were, on some level, were in the forefront in the 60s and 70s when you put out that, I don't know if I call it electronic music, but you used the Moog synthesizer and some other stuff like that. I mean, what pushed you away from doing typical standard piano jazz to really going out there?
Well, let me stress that I never abandoned standard piano jazz. I mean, that's one of the main things that has kept me going through the years. But there was a powerful influence in those times of the impact of electronic music. And the company I was with, which was Command Records, under the leadership of my old friend Enoch Light, were interested in competing with some of the other records which were getting the public's attention. So they allowed me to make a record totally of my own compositions in just about any length and manner that I could come up with. I worked with a very accommodating engineer, and more than engineer, advisor, I would say, whose name he's since passed on, was Walter Steer. And between us, we constructed a number of things. The album did quite well, and one tune on it, the Minotaur, we called it, reference to the old Greek legend, was an instrumental hit. But this is a long time ago. This is back in the 60s.
Do you follow, as just even a listener, if not a musician, do you listen to modern rock and roll? Do you listen to rap and hip hop and any of that stuff, polka?
I do not find myself fascinated by current pop music, so I have to say negatively, no, I do not much listen to it, but it's difficult to avoid it. So in a general way, I can tell what's going on.
Well, in the same way that I am not that cognizant of jazz music past a certain point, was there a point when you were enjoying top 40 rock and roll, Beatles, the Stones, into...
Well, yes, there certainly was. It was at that time that I was very much involved in recording comparable songs for various record labels in New York when the record industry was highly competitive, and a hit by one set of people would invoke a cover recording by another company. much in the thick of things than simply by being a studio player for hire for almost any recording that was going on in those days. But that's a long time ago.
Oh, sure. Do you miss the days of big record labels?
I do. I have noticed that when I speak to sympathetic people such as yourself, and the past comes up, I am stimulated to recall it, and I do remember it in great and usually loving detail. Sometimes the negative, but usually just I'm impressed by how much activity there was in those days for people in my category. And my category included all sorts of musicians, each of whom had specialties. Mine was playing on several keyboard instruments and playing various styles of jazz piano and jazz organ, and being a competent reader and an arranger and conductor of my own things and so forth. It was excitingly stimulating in those days, and while I lead a calmer life now that I'm in my 90s, I still recollect that time with a lot of joy.
You are 91 years old, right?
That's correct.
Mazel tov. But you're going to be playing on July 18th at the 92nd Street Y, and then God willing in December you're going to be at Dizzy's Jazz Club Coca-Cola in New York City. That's right. It's part of Lincoln Center there. But is 91 very different for you than 81 was? Do you travel less? Are you moving less well? Or are you just fine?
It is slightly different. I mean, there is a difference in the decades when you get to be this age. I don't care to travel as much or even to try to stretch out and work quite as much as I used to. It begins to take a toll on you, I've found, and while the toll is not nearly something totally negative, you do tend to want to slow down a little bit.
Do you have to be at the piano every day for practice? Maybe not scales, but you practice every single day?
Yes, I do, because I've discovered that you had better continue playing your instrument, whether or not you're playing for the public. The instrument demands it.
In your early-ish formative years, you actually did lessons, you won lessons, I think, from the great Teddy Wilson. Benny Goodman's band, and went off on his own too. What did you learn from Teddy Wilson?
Well, it was more than one. It was 12 lessons.
Oh, muscle, yeah.
That I won in a competitive contest. What did I learn from him? Many things. He was a kind and wise man, and among other things, he taught me the necessity, not just the value, but the necessity of practicing. And we discussed a lot of technical questions about harmony and the proper uses or alterations of harmony of all the songs that jazz people like to play.
There's a thing called alternative harmonies. I mean, what is that? Is that like the chords that Thelonious Monk would play, where there would be a note in there that would not make it a normal triad or something? What do you mean by alternative harmonies?
Well, that's one kind of alteration of alternative harmony. Your chords will become a little more complex and lead you into more than one direction at a given point. But it's also setting up sequences that in standard songs arrive at the same place by a more devious process. If I tell you that perhaps some musicians might understand, instead of going from D7 to 5/7, you go from A minor, then you go to D7, and then you go to 5/7. In other words, you make each chord a double or even a triple approach. It's as though you were flying, descending to earth in a looping maneuver rather than going straight down.
Ooh, you're already getting a little beyond what I can understand.
Well, that's what I was afraid of.
No, but you made it interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it was, you didn't make it so abstruse.
You make it more complex in order that you can be a little more inventive.
I like that. So that's one of the Teddy Wilson things. Did you study with any other major jazz people of note? Or if not study with them, learn from them by playing with them?
Well, I certainly heard most of the people whom I admire. Didn't study with them, but I I've learned a lot from George Shearing, from Lenny Tristano, from Horace Silver, and from various friends, simply by being in their presence and occasionally playing two pianos with them, such as Hank Jones and Derek Smith, and a number of other partners. You learn from everybody with whom you play, or simply from listening to them on recordings or going to hear them play somewhere in a club.
Actually, when you go to a club and you hear a jazz pianist especially, or you pick them out of the band, or you're listening on a record, can you just enjoy it? Or are you always like, oh, he or she is doing that right now? Or, ooh, if I were playing it, I would do it this way.
Well, there is a danger when you get so professionally involved in an interest such as jazz piano or almost any other kind of performance, in being perhaps too technically involved with how did they do it, and could I do it, and how would I do it, and would I want to do it. You reach all of those ethical and technical considerations. Yes, but at times, if the performance of the person you're listening to is sufficiently direct and exciting and above all those qualifications, you can enjoy it, I would say, without personalizing yourself.
We're talking with Dick Hyman here in the Daverhood. You're probably considered one of the foremost interpreters or just players of Scott Joplin. Is he sort of the founder, the most important person in creating what we, not just ragtime, but in modern jazz?
Well, I suppose so, because most people date the modern jazz as having a background in ragtime. If the music had a precedent, and it must have, then it was ragtime, which achieved popularity in the 1890s and then up until at least World War I. The history of jazz after that is, depending on how critical you want to be, pretty complex and with all sorts of different schools and approaches to the music and the way the music interacted with popular music of the time, which was sometimes almost the same thing. The precedent to all of that was ragtime, yes.
Do you have, aside from yourself, a favorite jazz composer? I mean, a lot of people they say Duke Ellington because they have to, or they really believe it, or who is yours?
Well, I too would say Duke Ellington, not only for the immense number of compositions, but for the variety. I like to refer to Duke Ellington not only of the 40s and 50s when he was very well known, but of the 1920s. His first records, although sometimes crude, were always ingenious and, to my mind, very stimulating.
Now, let me ask, one of the things that you even said that you're known for is being something of a chameleon. You can play other jazz pianists' styles.
Well, I can, and I kind of made a niche for myself by being able to do that. But at the same time, I have tried to come up with some original thinking, and in more recent years, paradoxically, or maybe not, I believe I have. And it doesn't refer explicitly to some of the players I mentioned before, or to Teddy Wilson, or to Art Tatum, or to George Shearing, all of whom I admire without reserve. But it has to do with working things out from other sources, and I've been doing my best to do it, and I continue doing that.
Oh, sure. But didn't you even did an album, I think, of the same song, as it might have been interpreted by a dozen different jazz people?
I did do that, and I have to say that perhaps it was a bit of a stunt in there. But what I like to do these days is just to take the material that I've been working with and really turn it around, turn it upside down, inside out, and try to combine it with some other pianistic possibilities.
And you are still composing, yeah?
Yeah, I'm still composing.
Didn't you do something in Oregon?
I had a performance of a piece I had in a music festival in Siletz Bay, Oregon, of a piece that I originally wrote as a longish cue for a film dating from, I believe, the early 1990s, perhaps, called Alan and Naomi.
Vaguely
And I
remember.
took one of those cues, and it seemed to me to have possibilities for a lengthening and a reorchestration, and that's what we just performed in Oregon. I enjoyed it. The thing is about 7-8 minutes long, and I've been thinking of ways since then that I could lengthen it even more and make a real total concert performance of it.
What would you call it? Would you call it a song? Do you call it a jazz concerto, if there's such a thing? How do you define something like that? It's a piece.
There is certainly such a thing as a jazz concerto, and I've written several of them. I recently wrote one for my friend Ken Poplowski, the clarinetist. I wrote a clarinet concerto for him, and I've written 2 different piano concerti for myself. A concerto is defined as a piece for a solo instrument and full orchestra. If you had less than a full orchestra, then it's perhaps piano and strings, piano and chamber orchestra, piano and even 2 other instruments. But a concerto refers to a whole orchestra, a big orchestra.
But yours still has a jazz leaning rather than a classical.
Oh, yeah, that's my natural form. But there are a lot of jazz is very flexible. As we say, there are a lot of ways to go.
Now, let me ask you, since we tend to be interested in the personalities of musicians and players, so I'm going to throw some names at you, and hopefully you'll have funny stories or memories or something touching to talk about. For example, any anecdotes about Charlie Parker?
Well, Charlie Parker was an exceedingly nice fellow. I played with him 2 or 3 times. One of them was, as it turned out, the only video performance that he happened to be on in which we see him and hear him playing. There are some others in which he is obviously not playing that particular take. But this one, he was a guest along with Dizzy Gillespie on a program I did, I think in the maybe 1960 or something like that. I was doing a nightly program in New York City on a small television network called Dumont. And Parker and Gillespie were guests to be given an award from Esquire magazine. They were introduced by the writer Leonard Feather. That turned out to be an historic recording. I didn't realize it at the time. So that is the one that's generally accorded the unique possibility of seeing Parker in full performance.
And you'll be playing, as we said, at the club named after Dizzy Gillespie in December.
Yes, I will be playing at Dizzy's Club, which is in New York City at the place called Jazz at Lincoln Center. It'll be my 3rd, maybe even my 4th performance there the week before Christmas as a solo pianist.
Now,
I look forward to that.
Do you have any memories, though, or anecdotes about Dizzy Gillespie?
Well, he was a very pleasant guy, and he was a very funny and showbiz-wise kind of fellow also. A little more, I would say, bombastic than Parker, but they worked together absolutely well.
What about Arthur Godfrey?
Well, Godfrey was hardly a jazz person, but I was his music director for 3 years, way back in the late 50s, I guess, or maybe early 60s. Godfrey was an entertainer whose public acceptance at the time is hard to believe these days when he is being steadily more forgotten, I'm sorry to say. But he was a radio personality. I was his director on a radio show that was heard every morning, and on occasional television shows through the season, the specials. Before my time, he had been even more popular. Unfortunately, the fame that comes with such celebrity kind of diminishes once you were off the scene. And Godfrey gradually became off the scene, and he died some time ago.
You have scored and arranged and sometimes composed music for literally a dozen Woody Allen films.
Well, that's true, and I've done a few films in addition to the ones I did for Woody.
Oh, sure. But working with him, an absolute film genius. We'll stay away from his personal, that side of it. But how did you, I mean, did he just say, oh, here's a semi-cut version of the film without music, go do what you do, and then...
Well, it isn't quite as simple as that, because you do have to have a meeting of minds. You do have to have an understanding that the idea that you, as a composer, see is the one that the film writer and producer, in this case both Woody, would like to underscore their scene. You have to have some meetings, and usually what you have in mind can be demonstrated by on the piano. But Woody, in comparison with some other film people I've worked with, was surprisingly undemanding. He had certain things to suggest, but he was open to any suggestions on my part, and there was some trust between us. He was perfectly willing to take any of my suggestions, and I his, of course.
A lot of his movies open with a jazz number, usually a famous old number from the 30s or 40s. Would he pick those, or did sometimes you say, hey, you know what would be a really good...
No, Woody has a great knowledge of music of the past, and I think it's one of his signature moves to select favorite recordings and use those at strategic points in the film. I had to take those into account, of course, so that my score would blend in and out of those moments. Some of Woody's films were entirely that, and my services weren't needed. A couple of others were entirely my contributions, and most of them were mixed. Scores contained scenes by me, and then there might be a bit of a record put in and so forth. It was Woody's decision how his general feeling for the flavor of the film was.
Now, what was the most challenging or complicated movie that you had to score and arrange? Doesn't have to be a Woody film, it can be from somebody else.
Well, the film that I dealt with recently, that I had mentioned earlier in our discussion, was an independent film called Alan and Naomi, which has since entered the educational film category and can still be found these days. The very first scene you see, the opening of the film, and through the credits, involves a little boy hopscotching. That is, playing on the grid that you make for yourself with chalk on a city street, on an asphalt street, and hopping from one square to another according to certain rules that I don't really know about. The hopping was the motivation for the kind of music that I succeeded in putting to it, and that scene, which with some other developing scenes from it, lasted about 7 or 7.5 minutes.
Wow.
That was a bit of a challenge, and it was sufficiently interesting that I had made a longer score, a longer piece out of it using that material. And in Oregon, we performed that piece with 3 singers and a string quartet, clarinet, piano, percussion, drums, and bass.
A couple more questions here with the wonderful Dick Hyman. Remember that you can go see him in person. Now, you don't even have to wait until December when he's at Dizzy's. He's going to be part of a group of jazz musicians doing the elegant piano, where they'll be saluting the aforementioned Teddy Wilson plus Tommy Flanagan and Hank Jones. This is all happening at the 92nd Street Y over on, 92nd Street and Lexington Avenue, happening on July 18th. For more information about that, please go to 92y.org, 92y.org. And of course, for all things Dick Hyman, go to dickhyman.com. And I have to ask this, and I apologize for asking it in advance, but the Urban Dictionary has mentioned that your name, when they describe you, they say you're the American jazz pianist composer, also known as the man with one of the most unfortunate names of all time. Did you take a lot of crap growing up from kids because of your name?
A moderate amount, but compared with other afflictions, it wasn't really all that bad.
I mean, did you make people call you
Richard? Name,
yeah.
But there it is, and I survived.
But you Richard.
Well, I am officially Richard, but somebody beat me to that. My friend, the late Richard Hyman, was well known as a Richard, so that left me with.
It would have been too confusing for people.
I'm certainly a Dick.
I'm not even touched. But what I will touch is, I forgot to ask you, you were on the last TV concert of Benny Goodman. So you must have known him. Any Benny Goodman stories or memories?
Well, yeah, but they're not that much different from other people's. So the people who have played with Benny have a combination of these little stories with kind of petulant disagreements about salary and getting the ray, which means a smileless stare from Benny, who didn't like what you're doing at that moment, or for no reason at all. But on the other hand, everybody I've ever known who has played with Benny believes him to be a superlative, believes him to have been a superlative musician, and we're all proud to have played with him. And I played with him very early on, way back 70 years ago, in 1948, when I was just a kid. I went on I believe it was an 8-week tour of Europe with him.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, we did, and we visited all of Scandinavia and France and England. And
Okay, now you got to tell me a story. I mean, give me an anecdote from even that one tour of all those different countries. You were a jazz musician. It was the 1940s. Something weird, something funny, something crazy must have happened.
Well, I don't know that anything really weird happened. It was right after the war, so there was that sensibility, which we don't have now, about playing in Europe. Benny was Benny. He played wonderfully. He didn't pay quite enough money to make everybody happy, but we were all so young, we were just thrilled to be playing with him on any terms at all. It was just a wonderful experience. My wife and I were newly married.
So that was part of it too. I thought maybe, jazz musicians, they get the women, they get the drugs, but you were already kind of settled when that first.
I'm afraid I've been on the clean side of things for my whole career, and my marriage is now from the same year. It's 70 years old.
Oh my! Is your wife still?
Oh yeah, my wife and I still are very happy, and we now live in Florida.
Oh well, of course you're Jewish. Where else are you gonna live?
that's about it, but that's not quite true. However, that's a funny joke. We do live very happily in Florida in a town called Venice.
Oh yeah, it's a very nice thing. Can I ask, what is the key to a 70, God willing, and maybe 80, if things go well, year marriage?
The key to it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Key to it is having a wonderful wife.
Yeah.
And doing your best to get along.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you have your ups and downs and things, but to stay together for that long, that's something.
Well, it is. And since we had that memorable anniversary and getting these questions such as yours, and honestly, I don't know the answer. I think we're just very fortunate. And we still have each other.
Now, you have a big discography. I mean, you put out literally dozens of albums back when they were putting out albums.
Yeah.
I mean, people can even go to your website still, and then there's ways they can buy signed copies of vinyl and I think CDs too, which is fabulous. How much of your work is digitally available, and are you making sure that all these records that at least you have the rights to will be perpetual? They'll be on iTunes. They'll be available to people.
Well, I offer a number of them on my website, but I sometimes just explore on the web to see what other people are doing with them. And if you survive as long as I have, you come to see that even the record labels have changed. Some of my records are on labels that I never heard of. And I assume they've gotten the proper licenses, but it's a little bewildering, and I can't really account for all of the issues that they now appear on.
Is it important to you that someone can go and find even your obscure tracks, or are you more concentrated on the music you're doing now, the more recent stuff, etc.?
Well, I try to keep it both ways. I'm still writing things, and I haven't recorded that much except to reissue older things in the last few years. So I have made an effort more recently to list all of the recordings that I've made and to keep them known. And I've made an effort to list them all on the web in one listing or another. I am aware of the body of stuff that I carry around with me, but I'm still looking forward to making some new ones.
Oh, Halavai. We've been talking with Dick Hyman here in the Daverhood. Last question for you. Your daughter, Judith, is also a musician. She plays the violin. When she said, Mommy, Daddy, I don't want to be a doctor, I don't want to be a lawyer, I want to go into music, were you happy? Were you like, did you give her advice? What did you tell her?
Well, of course I was happy and gave her a little advice, but she struck out on her own and she went into an entirely different kind of playing. Although she's a very prolific and accomplished player of general repertoire, classical repertoire, her specialty, not jazz, is bluegrass music of, well, it has various names, bluegrass, country music, and that sort of thing. And she performs with her husband, who's a banjo guitarist, and for some time they have had a group called the Horseflies, but often she and her husband are performers as a pair.
Well, speaking of talented and accomplished and prolific and quite wonderful, it has been a delight talking with Dick Hyman here on Dave's Gone By. Remember, go see him on July 18th at the 92nd Street Y in Manhattan off of Lexington Avenue. And go see him now, and then almost half a year from now, go back and see him solo at Dizzy's Jazz Club Coca-Cola in New York over at Lincoln Center too. And God willing, you'll see him a year after that and 10 years beyond that. I wish you long life, great music, wonderful creativity, and shalom to you.
Well, shalom, and I thank you so much for your kind thoughts. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
The Flying Fingers of Dick Hyman there on Dave's Gone By. In fact, before we even started the interview, we played a song or a piece of his, and that was done not that many years ago, called Finger Buster. And he's just, 80-something years old at that point, playing something called Finger Buster and just rocking it. The wonderful Dick Hyman. Remember, you do go see him on July 18th at the 92nd Street Y. What wonderful guests we have had in the Daverhood today. July 18th, 2018. Dave Lefkowitz here doing the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream. Gotta thank so many people for their messages, so many people who've been tuning in. Karen and Mary and Madeline and Kelly and someone named Joyce. Stephen, say hi. Oh, yay. Hello to Stephen and Fred. Wow, this just worked out like this on this list of people watching. Fred and then Ethel. So we have a Fred and we have an Ethel watching. And then Pamela from the library where I used to work. Yay, yay, yay. Welcome to all of you. And thanks so much for joining us in the Daverhood. It's 11:15 Mountain Time here in Greeley, Colorado, where we do the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program. Remember that if you missed the first part of the show, that hilarious interview that Rabbi Saul did with Susan Shumsky, the author of this book, well, hopefully we'll be able to save and archive the video cast that we've been doing of this show. It's here on Facebook, and we'll also put it on our regular website, davesgoneby.com. Even if we can't save the video, we'll have the audio as we usually do. It is a radio program, and you can find those at davesgoneby.com. All the archives of virtually every program we've done since our very first one back in October of 2002. Just go to davesgoneby.com, click on the archive section. There's even a separate archive of just the interviews that we've been doing. So this show, obviously, we've got to render it and make it nice, and then we'll post it within a day or two, along with the hundreds and hundreds of previous shows that we've done that you can listen to for free. They're podcasts, so you can either stream them on your computer or download them to your listening device, whatever, because they're MP3 files as well. But all that Dave's Gone By material, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of hours now, just for your listening pleasure. So please do take advantage. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and tell me. You want to contact me? davesgoneby@aol.com is the way to do that. davesgoneby@aol.com. And you're going to want to note down that email address, because here's the contest. Here's how you can win a copy of Dr. Susan Shumsky's book, Maharishi and Me. The Seeking Enlightenment with the Beatles Guru. You saw how much fun she was. You saw how cool she was, even though she had very serious stuff to talk about. But if you're interested in her story of working for the Maharishi for about 6 years and staying as part of his, not entourage, but as part of the Maharishi's thing for almost 2 decades, plus all the work that she does, the teaching that she does, the counseling she does. You want to find out about her and her life, Maharishi and Me. And it is from Skyhorse Publishing, but you can get a free copy of the book. How? Well, here's the contest. What you've got to do is before midnight tonight, Eastern Time, so that's 10 o'clock Mountain Time, very simple. Send me an email, davesgoneby@aol.com. Put in the subject header of the email, just, that you're there for the contest. And in the body, all I want to know is your favorite Beatles song. So just lay down, or if you don't have one, make one up, or pick one, or pick a Rolling Stone song, but pick a Beatles song and tell me that in the body of the email. And then at random, we'll pick one winner tomorrow morning. I'll go through all the emails that came in by midnight tonight, and the winner will then mail you a free copy of her book. Sound simple? Sound cool? Go do it. Again, it's davesgoneby@aol.com. 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 You'll include your address when we're ready to send you the book, and good luck to you. It's a pretty good book. I've been enjoying reading it. Anyway, we've got more to do on this episode of the Dave's Gone By program. For example, we've got a Saturday segue of songs in the news. We'll have more story time, which means, yes, more Hansel und more cow. But before we get to that, well, we do have to, we're going to do this because we're cultural here. I mean, we talked about jazz piano, and we talked about Broadway, and we talked a little bit about writing. Let's get really literary now with a limerick, because every week we do a Colorado limerick of the damned. And what this is we find a town or city in Colorado, and we write a short poem about it. And the thing about limericks is they're generally geared towards something amusing or a punchline, and quite often rather risque, and in my case, miserable and horrible. So without further ado, here is our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for this week.
A limerick is a comic verse of 5 lines, in which lines 1, 2, and 5 will end with words that rhyme. And likewise, verses 3 and 4 also end with words that rhyme. So this is a limerick.
Oh yeah. Time for this week's Colorado Limerick of the Damned. Now, our limerick for this week is dealing with the little town, speaking of the Flintstones, the little town of Bedrock. Yes, there is actually a Bedrock, Colorado. I even have some information about it this week. It's established in 1883 in Montrose County of Colorado. And here's the cool thing. They have, town has nothing, but it does have a general store that was founded all the way back in 1882. That general store in Bedrock, Colorado was featured in the movie Thelma and Louise, and it's still operational. You can still go and buy stuff there. So that is Bedrock, Colorado, and it's time for our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for this week. Are you ready? I know you are. Sorry about the noise outside. There's some kind of camp or school involved. Why would they bring a school to the University of Northern Colorado? It just doesn't belong here. Anyway, here we go. A brutal young rapist from Bedrock tried putting a girl in a headlock. She broke from his grip and bit off the tip. He lived, but he now has a dead cock. Yes, thank you very much. That is our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for this week on Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream here on July 14th, 2018, our 659th episode of the program. You can bring the kids back into the... I probably should have told you to take the kids out of the room before that poem, but now you can bring them back in because, oh my goodness, yes, gather around, toast the marshmallows, stare at your radios, even though we're actually on a computer now, because it is story time.
Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story, remember what you said. You promised me, you said you would, you gotta give in, so I'll be good. Tell me a story, then I'll go to bed.
Yeah. Story time on the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream with me, Dave Lefkowitz. And this book that you all know well for the past couple of months, A Cow for Hansel, a book I picked out of the basket when I was having my brake pads repaired on our beloved Subaru at the local auto repair place where they had Dr. Seuss books and local newspapers. And then this. I couldn't resist from the feudal German cover of the little pre-Nazi boy. And here he is, Hansel and his cow, written by Erna Holier. I know it says Ernie, but it was a woman. They just gave her a man's name to sell more books. So here's the deal. How do I... God, we're 3/4 of the way through the book, so how do I digest the, if you haven't been listening the last few weeks, you missed this. Well, Hansel is a poor German boy, World War I, living with his loving but poor family on a hardscrabble farm, a farm that lost its cattle because a terrible cattle disease wiped out, a cattle plague. That's this kind of children's book, ladies and gentlemen, wiped out the cattle in Oberhausen, Germany. So they send Hans off a couple of houses down to work for a farmer who's better off, Mr. Kaiser, who's got a couple of kids, including Sepp, who befriends Hans, and they're very cool together. And Hans works at the Kaiser farm to make extra money. Kaiser also gives him a big patch of land, but a land that just is, nothing grows on it. Wild boars descend on it. But Hans says, hey, look, if you give me this land that you're not even using, I will till it, I will work it. You won't have to even pay me my other wages, but I'll work on this farm, on this land for myself, along with all the chores I help you with. And then I keep the crop that I get, and the crop, of course, being potatoes. Yay! There he is. There's our friend Potato. So Hans does this. He works like a dog, but he turns that land that was just rocks and rubble into something arable. He grows the potatoes. He has this really, really good crop. He brings it to market because he is ready and he wants to finally buy a good cow. A cow he can milk, a cow that can sire and make other cows, to really help the family farm. But he brings he brings his big potato crop to market. Turns out everybody else had a great harvest too. So the money he thought he would get, he's not going to get for it. Instead, he ends up buying a calf, which is fine, except it's not really useful for another 2 years. He just has sort of feed it and make it grow, and a bunch of chickens. So at least he can bring that back to the farm, to the family. He comes back. As he's walking towards the door, he overhears the evil veterinarian. You probably have never heard those two words put together in the same sentence before. But the evil veterinarian who's saying, "You still owe me money from the cows I couldn't save that died anyway, and I want my 10 marks and my this." And the family has no money to pay him, and Hans spent all his money on this little calf and the chickens, so makes him a deal. And what does he give? He gives the veterinarian the calf. He pays off the bill, etc. He doesn't give. He keeps the calf. He does, and they promise to pay him by the next month's bill, to pay him all that's still left over, even though they have no idea where they're going to get the money. So Hans is in a pretty despairing mood. Times are not good, but he does get to keep the calf. Family gets to keep the chickens. They did have a decent potato harvest. What is going to happen to Hans now in A Cow for Hansel? Okay, let us continue, shall we? We shall. Arriving at his field, Hans gathered up dry potato plants, stacked them on his old rock piles, and put a match to them. The dry stalks smoldered away and gave off an acrid odor. Hans finished cleaning the field so it would be ready for the following year. And now Mr. Kaiser would probably want the field for planting then. The potato stalks continued to crackle and smolder. I'm so sorry. This is a little bit traumatic for Potato here. It's like, "Oh, they're burning us. Oh, God, it's a Holocaust." I know. I'm sorry, Potato. I know. It's okay. It's okay. Hans worked steadily as he dug up the remnant potatoes. See, you can help me out here. We're digging you up. Whoop. There we go. By nightfall, he had gathered enough potatoes to fill 2 burlap sacks. One of his fires was still burning. He had fed it with dry branches and baked potatoes in its. I know. I'm sorry. You're kidding me, right? I can't believe you're reading this. I'm sorry. He had baked in the coals. Hans scooped up a bucket full of dirt and covered the embers. He had to be sure all the sparks were out because the forest was so close by. He dumped more dirt over the ashes, then stomped on them to make sure the fire was completely out. As he was leaving, Hans heard the warning bell ringing at the crossing. It was time for the evening train. Hans dug out the last apple from his rucksack and waited by the still warm rock pile for the crossbeams to come up. He was through with the field now. If Mr. Kaiser used his horses to dislodge the few remaining boulders and drag them away, the field would be as good as the fields on the other side of the tracks. Tomorrow, he'd tell Sepp, which is Mr. Kaiser's son, that the field was ready for harrowing. And what a harrowing adventure this has been, huh? He dug his teeth into an apple as the train crawled uphill. Its long row of lighted windows passed by. Hans sighed. If only he could have bought a cow, so Papa wouldn't have to work in town all the time. The train passed and the crossbeams went up. Hans pulled the cart with the potatoes over the track and headed for the village. His back ached as he dragged the cart. I feel for you, Hansel. As he dragged the cart into the yard and pushed it into the shed. Then, hoisting a sack on his shoulders, he carried it into the house and returned for the second sack. He had worked all afternoon for 2 small sacks of 3rd grade potatoes. It's okay, Potato. One day you'll pass the test and you'll make the 4th grade. Yay! He would have to get more potatoes from somewhere for his chickens. In the dimly lighted hall, Hans exchanged his dirty shoes for his slippers. Just then, Mama opened the kitchen door. "I thought I heard you," she smiled. Last week we had our chicken playing Hans's mama. I guess she can make a return appearance. Hello, here. So this is Mrs. Bach-Bagok. So you're ready to play Hansel's mom? Yeah. Okay, here we go. "I thought I heard you," she smiled. "Sorry to be late for supper, Mama. I cleared the field and it took longer than I expected." "That's all right, Hansel. We have good news for you. Yay!" Mama beamed. Mr. Kaiser sent a whole wagon full of potatoes. What? Hans started in surprise. Ooh. He never let me know he planned to do that. You know how Mr. Kaiser is, Hans. He would have felt embarrassed to talk about a kind deed that he intended to do. Where is the wagon, Mama? By the cellar window. Hans did not feel tired anymore. He ran to the side door and opened it. The rising moon cast its silvery light over the yard. By the light of the silvery moon. Yeah, okay. In the shadows by the house, Hans could see the dark form of the wagon. God bless you, Mr. Kaiser, he whispered. God bless you, Mr. Kaiser. Half aloud. Oh, all right. He whispered half aloud. Bit of a contradiction in terms there. God bless you, Mr. Kaiser. There we go. May God fill your barn with healthy cows. Oh, they love their cows in this book. Amen. Papa laid his hands on Hans's shoulders. Hans turned around, surprised. It is good, said Papa. I'm going to have my bottle of pure leaf tea represent Hans's father. It is good, said Papa, to have friends in hard times, Hansel. Let's leave the wagon for now and go in for supper. A milk can clattering down the road wakened Hans from his sleep next morning. Wake up, Hansel, someone called. Hans yawned and pushed back the covers. Then, groping his way to the window, hopefully not in a sexual manner, he pushed out the wooden shutters. It was still dark outside. Hans, Sepp called up to him. What is it, Hans? Asked Hans, trying to shake off his drowsiness. We need the wagon. What wagon? The potato wagon. Ooh. Oh, all right, Hans answered as he remembered Mr. Kaiser's gift. I'll empty it right away, Sepp. Thanks a lot. I'll be back soon, Sepp answered as he hurried off with his milk cart to the dairy. Hans quickly put on his work clothes, bounded down the cellar stairs, and opened the small window. There, he hurried out to the shed, fetched the wooden chute, and connected it to the wagon and the cellar window. Climbing up onto the wagon, he carefully forked the potatoes into the chute. Whee! Whee! There they go. Whee! Having way too much fun doing this. After a while, there were too many potatoes blocking the window for him to get any more into the cellar, so he went into the cellar and raked the potatoes towards the far side. The wagon was empty when Sepp arrived less than an hour later. You must have worked fast, he grinned. I was going to help you do the job. Funny how Sepp arrives after the work is done and says, oh yeah, I would have helped you. Anyway, by the way, Sepp, I cleared your father's field by the railroad tracks after school yesterday. He can go in any time now with the harrow. Father told me this morning he plans to use the field next year, so he will be glad to hear that it is ready for harrowing. Did he tell you what he wants to plant in it? No, he didn't, answered Sepp. See you, Hansel. Hans washed his hands and went into the house. Why didn't you wake me early this morning, Mama? Mama dumped some potato mash into... Seriously? Who wrote this damn book? Potato, watch your language, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Who wrote this freaking book? Okay. Mama dumped some potato mash into the chicken's feeding trough. I knew you were tired last night, and I just didn't have the heart to wake you up early this morning, Hans. I don't know why I'm off camera. Now I am. Mama paused. Do you feel up to driving the sheep to the ravine after school? Sure, Mama. Hans walked over to the table. It didn't seem possible that the summer had passed so quickly. It seemed as if it was only yesterday that Papa had bought the sheep. Do you want some milk soup for breakfast? Milk soup. I don't think so, Mama. I think I'll have fried. What? Yeah. I can do them myself. Hans shot a disgusted glance at the pitcher of goat's milk. He would never like goats, he told himself. Hans prepared his breakfast, ate, and then hastened off to school. After school, he drove the sheep out onto the roads. The black ewe was surrounded by 4 white lambs. The 2 spring lambs had grown to be almost as big as their mother. One of the 2 original white sheep had broken a leg and had to be sold. The second white sheep had produced only 1 lamb. Hans drove his flock up the big road, then turned off the path leading to the ravine. The sheep started going in all directions. Hans rounded them up and led them into the ravine. Once in the pasture and the ravine, the sheep could not easily break out, so Hans had only to watch the ravine's 2 exits. After a while, the lambs became weary and lay down. Their mothers grazed nearby. Hans sat in the flower-studded meadow and watched the sheep nibble the grass around the pretty but poisonous purple fall crocuses. His eyes wandered up the slope. Birds stirred in the bushes. Hawk, hawk, stir, hawk, hawk, stir, filling the air with their chatter. Chatter, 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 chatter. A rabbit sat up in the grass, saw Hans, and hopped off. Hippity hop, hippity hop, hippity hop. High in the sky above the blazing crown of beeches, maples, and oaks, a hawk wheeled around the castle ruin in graceful circles. Hans wondered what the hawk was after. Halfway between the path and the castle ruins stood a tall fir tree half hidden by the dense forest. I wonder if I can climb up there, thought Hans. A lone poplar thrust its quivering limbs upward in the pasture. The poplar was not so tall as the stately fir, but it would still give him a fine view. Hans climbed the poplar, limb by limb. As he stood close to its swaying top, he imagined himself master of the countryside, master of his proverbial domain. A cow for Hansel goes on and on. And on every week on the Dave's Gone By Facebook program of the stream, the book by Erna Holyer. I hope you've enjoyed that. First of all, I want to thank my helpers on the chapter this week. Thank you to Mrs. Bakbagak. Thank you. Take a bow. And of course, to Potato, for whom this is a rather traumatic piece of literature. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I know, I'm sorry, Potato. But anyway, that is A Cow for Hansel here on the Dave's Gone By program. It is 11:38 in the morning, Mountain Time, here in Greeley, Colorado, where we do Dave's Gone By every Saturday from 9 until noon, or thereabouts, in the Daverhood. So we still even have one more segment to do for you, as we love to do a Saturday segue of songs in the news. That's a lot of fun. It's where we play a song or part of a song, and you have to guess, hey, why is David playing that this week? That's coming up. But first, we want to remind you one more time, or in this case, excuse me. Excuse me. Take over, Mrs. Bakwadak. Of our guests in the Daverhood. Got to thank one more time Dick Hyman, the jazz master pianist. You can go see him this week, July 18th at the 92nd Street Y, with a concert dedicated to Teddy Wilson and a couple of other jazz greats like Hank Jones. I forget the other person, but that will be happening on July 18th on 92nd Street and Lexington Avenue in New York. Dick Hyman, so great to have him in the Daverhood. And earlier on the program, live with us in studio, was Susan Shumsky, Dr. Susan Shumsky, with her book, Maharishi and Me. Remember that you can win this book just by dropping me an email before midnight tonight, Eastern Time, letting me know your favorite Beatles song. We'll choose one winner at random who will get this book in the mail. So that's way cool. But now Dick Hyman and Susan Shumsky are both friends of the Daverhood. They are people who've been on this radio program, and we've had people on from our very first years, going all the way up to guests we've had in recent times. The great thing is that we like to keep tabs on them because they were on for a particular reason, and now they're doing other stuff. They're writing other books, appearing in other plays and musicals. They're, like friends and family. We want to let you know what they're up to. And so that's why we call this segment Friends of the Daverhood. if I can just get my iTunes to play it. So who are our friends this week and what have they been up to? Well, for example, let me get myself back on camera here. Good. I want to give a shout out to press agent Susan Shumsky. She has just published, it's not really a sequel, it's kind of an expanded version with more stuff in it of her book, Backstage Pass to Broadway. It's now called Backstage Pass to Broadway, More True Tales from a Theater Press Agent from Goodreads Press, and you can get that from Amazon.com. So congratulations to Susan for bolstering the book with even more cool stories of all the crazy people that she worked with in her years representing theater and Broadway. On Saturday, this is today, you probably kind of have had to have already booked this. I'm going to make the music a little bit lower here. But I want to let you know that Austin Pendleton is teaching a master class in scene study and monologues. That's happening as part of the United Solo Theater Festival on Theater Row. That is happening today, but I am not sure what time. It's already almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon in New York. That might already be going on. You'll have to check. But anyway, Austin Pendleton is in this segment almost every week. He's going to be doing something on Broadway, off Broadway, off. There's never a week when Austin Pendleton isn't busy and we're not mentioning him. So congratulations on that. This is your last day to catch the dark comedy The Property, being done by New Light Theater Company at the Harold Clurman Theater on West 42nd Street. It is directed by our friend of the Daverhood, Bob Calfin. And then now through tomorrow, you can see Melissa Manchester, the songstress, and our guest back in 2012. She's playing Feinstein's 54 Below. Jessica Molaski, she was on the show back in 2015. She is in a workshop of a new musical by Jason Robert Brown. It's called The Connector, and they're doing it up in Poughkeepsie, New York, as part of the New York Stage and Film Vassar Powerhouse season. So if you happen to be in upstate, go check that out this weekend. And then now, or happening really tomorrow through the end of July, don't forget that Karen Finley is reading from her new book, Grabbing Pussy. She's adapting that into a theater piece. That is happening at the Laurie Beachman Theater on West 42nd Street. So it's Sundays only. So tomorrow, and then the Sunday after that, and the Sunday after that, Grabbing Pussy with Karen Finley. I should probably rephrase, this is the day when I've talked to Dick Hyman, and we're mentioning Grabbing Pussy. I'm hoping somebody among our friends is also named Volva. We'll see. But we do have a Mike Agranoff who is going to be on Wednesday, July 18th, at the Aubergine Cafe as part of the Sunnyside Singers Club in Woodside, New York. I used to work for about 2-3 years in Woodside, New York. I got walked over and gone to see him. But you can this Wednesday night at Aubergine's Cafe, Mike Agranoff. Starting this Wednesday and running through early August, the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey is doing one of the more rarely performed Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, featuring Tony nominee Robert Cuccioli, our friend of the neighborhood, playing Marcus Andronicus. Now, for one more week, so you have this weekend and then all next week, if you're in California, to go see Willard Manis's play Their Finest Hour, about the friendship of Edward R. Murrow and Winston Churchill. That is happening at North Hollywood's Brick House Theater. And then starting this Thursday, we were just talking about the Powerhouse season and Vassar up in Poughkeepsie, New York. They're doing another musical, and it's called The Waves. And it features not only the very well-known actor Raul Esparza, but our friend of the neighborhood, Tony-winning actress Alice Ripley. You remember her from Next to Normal. She is going to be in that show at the Powerhouse season from Thursday through July 27th. And then our friend of the neighborhood, Stephanie D'Abruzzo. Avenue Q is celebrating its 15th anniversary now. It started as an off-Broadway show, came to Broadway, then went back to off-Broadway where it's still running. So they're doing off-Broadway this whole big special thing for like a week or two where they're bringing back original cast members. Well, she's one of them. So she's going to join the show for a couple of times doing a song or two, in addition to, the regular current cast is doing Avenue Q, but they're bringing in people who've done it before to do songs and a special performance. Anyway, Stephanie D'Abruzzo is one of those people, and she'll be joining them this Friday off Broadway in Avenue Q at New World Stages. Also on Friday, Chris Smither will be taking part in the Telluride Americana Music Festival at the Sheridan Opera House. I don't know actually, well, it was in Colorado, isn't it? Telluride. So if you're in this neck of the woods, go see the wonderful Chris Smither. That is coming this coming Friday. And also on Friday, it is the release of a new album on iTunes called Three's Comedy, featuring three comedians, Joe DeVito, Kyle Ocasio, and our longtime friend, Vicky Cooperman. So get that on iTunes. And then, playing now through early August at Boston's Emerson Colonial Theater, you can see Danny Burston, our friend of the Daverhood, all the way back to 2006. He is in the new musical, Broadway bound, probably musical, Moulin Rouge. And then also, you have just 3 more weeks to see A Bronx Tale on Broadway, which is co-written by 3 friends of the Daverhood. Chaz Palminteri, Glenn Slater, and Alan Menken. Is at the Longacre Theater. And by the way, Chaz Palminteri is actually in the musical for the remainder of the run. Now, through the middle of August, Alan Lewis Rickman, not to be confused with the dead Alan Rickman, Harry Potter guy. No, this is Alan Lewis Rickman starring in his show Tevye Served Raw, which is based on a bunch of Sholem Aleichem stories that they didn't use in Fiddler on the Roof. That is at the Playroom Theater in New York. Oh, and I was telling you about Austin Pendleton. He shows up twice this week because he is directing a play called The Saintliness of Marjorie Kemp at the Duke Theater on 42nd Street. That is now through late August. And then I mentioned Fiddler on the Roof. They're doing Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. The National Yiddish Theater Folksbiene is doing it, directed by Joel Gray and featuring musical direction by our friend Zalman Mlatek. Reminding you that the band's visit on Broadway has a score written by our friend David Yazbek, Desperate Measures, in an open run at the York Theater that has music by David Friedman, and they've just released the cast album on that. School of Rock features lyrics by Glenn Slater. That's at the Winter Garden Theater. You can see LaShawn's playing one of the Donnas in Summer, the Donna Summer musical. Daniel Breaker is in Hamilton, and Jim Caruso's Cast Party, you can see that every Monday night at Birdland. Reminding you that StageBuddy.com is a great website to check for New York nightlife information that was put together by our friend Evan Seplow. Dr. Demento, still doing new Dr. Demento shows, drdemento.com. Oh, Bob Cudmore doing podcasts of upstate New York history at bobcudmore.com. What else? Gewalt. Read Mike Peters' column, The Gnarly Trombone, and also his other work for the Greeley Tribune, right here in Greeley, Colorado. Gil Moon hosts Senior Circle on Sunday mornings for KFKA Radio here in Greeley, and also Golden Years Theater every Sunday night from 6 to midnight. And that's really cool. That's actually old-time radio shows. 6 hours of old-time radio, thanks to Gil Moon on KFKA. And finally, Charlie Gross and Eva Heinemann co-hosting Two on the Aisle, a theater review program on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Eva Heinemann hosting High Drama on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And those, my friends, are the friends of the Daverhood. Yay! Well, man, at least in this next segment, the final segment of this week's Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream, I get to shut up a little bit. Not a lot, but I get to at least take little breaks, because this is our Saturday Segue. This is a segment where we play songs or parts of songs, and you have to figure out, hey, what would Dave be playing that for this particular week? Why? What's in the news? What's happening in current events that would make Dave think of, aha, the song title perhaps, the artist doing the song, the theme of the tune. That's your job. My job is to just sit back and play it and then talk about it. But anyway, people are sending me hearts and happinesses and lots of nice messages. And yay, thank you so much. And by the way, welcome to Fred and Ethel. Pamela and Kathleen and Jolinda and Michael and Joe and Warhol and Susan. Thank you, Dave, for your friendship. Well, thank you, Susan, for friending the Daverhood as well. Boy, oh boy, she's just sending tons of things and Frida Kahlo thing and smiling and happy, joy, and hearts too. Well, I heart this program and I heart all of you for listening. And now you get to do a little bit of the work. You have to listen to some of a song and then guess, hey, why is Dave playing that? We'll begin with someone we actually just mentioned a few moments ago.
Well, I was a caveman, painting on the wall. Never had a dollar, man, I had it all. I was very high, the order was low. Just one step, I'd spread my wings and fly. I would fly.
The lovely sound, the lovely guitar and voice, and just the feeling that you get from a song by Chris Smither. Remember I mentioned him, he's a friend of the Daverhood, and he's appearing on Friday at Telluride. He'll be right here in Colorado. But we're playing him for a different reason right now as part of our Saturday Segue. I hope you caught the first part of the lyrics there, because he mentioned something about being a caveman. That's actually the name of the song, Caveman, from his 1997 record, Small Revelations, as opposed to Divine Revelations, which Rabbi Saul was talking about earlier. But why would we play Caveman on our Saturday Segue? The answer, well, sure. They got them all. They got them all out. They're recovering. The 12 kids on that soccer team, or forgive me, football team, are gonna be okay, seemingly. Their ages 11 to 17, and they and their 25-year-old guide got stranded back on June 23rd in the Tham Luang cave in Thailand. They were just gonna go exploring and spelunking, or whatever the hell teenage boys do in caves. I really don't want to know. Rains came, flooded them in. They couldn't get out, and they were stuck there for like 2.5 weeks, these poor kids. And they were found on July 2nd, but they still couldn't be extracted till a week later. So it's weird, they could get rescuers and food to them, but couldn't actually get them out until days later. They're now in quarantine to stave off leptospirosis, histoplasmosis, and supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So, but they should be okay. And it's all these weird things they have to worry about too, because when they were first brought out into light, I'm sure they couldn't even open their eyes. They were like bats or something. But it's kind of nice, kind of a happy ending to that story in Thailand. Hence, these dozen boys, these soccer cavemen. That's why we played from Chris Smither, Caveman. Get it? You got it. You understand it. You know it. Now that you know what we're doing in this segment, can you guess why we're playing this particular track? Now, it's not something particularly military. Come on.
The judge said, screw all boys, you're only human. They brought it on themselves by being born a woman, like a mountain's there to climb and fruit's there to be eaten. Woman's there to rape, to be shoved around and beaten.
Happy little number there. If you recognize, I'm not sure if you recognize that voice, but if you know the song Little Boxes, which I think they used for the beginning of some TV cable series, but that Pete Seeger fans have known for a million years before that. But that was Malvina Reynolds. Her best known song those little boxes. But that was a later one. That one was called The Judge Said, from the Malvina Reynolds collection, Ear to the Ground. The song is The Judge Said. Seems like a long time ago already, but we played that because, of course, get ready for the bruising nomination process for Donald Trump's choice to replace Judge Anthony Kennedy. It's D.C. Circuit Court Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Now, Republicans, even though they control seemingly everything, they're going to need nearly every vote that they've got. It's weird. They think John McCain is out of the running because of brain surgery or brain cancer, but they were just quoting McCain yesterday. So I guess he's compos mentis and doing stuff. I'm not sure. But the point is, it's possible that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats will marshal their forces and make sure that no Democrat votes for him. But then, of course, there are a couple of Democrats in red-leaning states that might have a problem if they vote against it. I mean, politics. I personally liked Chuck Schumer's idea of, I think it was Schumer who told him, who said, look, Donald Trump could pave over a lot of difficulties, a lot of hatred. He could really build a bridge if he did one really great thing. And that would be, instead of nominating a conservative right-wing justice, why not right the injustice that was done 2 years ago when Mitch McConnell and Republicans blocked Merrick Garland's chances for the Supreme Court. When Obama said, this is the guy I want, and they said, oh no, there's 8 months, 8 tiny little short months before the next presidential election. We're going to block it so that the next regime, whatever it is, comes in there and they get to choose who the Supreme Court nominee would be. Now, that was evil. It was horrible. It was wrong. And the beauty of it is, and I talked about this, I think, last week, Mitch McConnell, the incredible hypocrite that he is, he's saying now, oh, well, yeah, we're just a couple of months now until October in the midterm elections, but that doesn't matter. We're going to get this nominee, this Kavanaugh guy, we're going to vet him, we're going to seat him, and we'll get him on the court before the midterm elections because it's not important. Changing the regimes that way doesn't really count. I mean, it's pure politics. Harry Reid honestly did the same thing, but it's just so miserable and awful. Now, granted, Trump could have picked a worse candidate. He could have gone much further right-wing. He could have had that crazy religious lady. I mean, you could see that woman was batshit crazy if you looked in her eyes. And then she's from this weird cultish religious group. He didn't pick her. He really didn't. He went with this other guy, this Brett Kavanaugh. But he's an old guard. I mean, he doesn't look old. They purposely chose someone who's going to be on the court for 30, 40 damn years. But he's machine kind of right-wing conservative political guy. He will be anti-Roe v. Wade. And as MSNBC takes great pains to point out, he's the one who says, who voted with Trump in the way of saying that, he has a right to do these certain things and a right to defend himself and a right to pardon people. It's going to be a very interesting, it may make what happened this week when they put, we'll talk about that too, when they have these other hearings this week. It may make that look like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. Because honestly, I don't think the Democrats can win this one in a real way. I think the Republicans will get this guy in, will remake the Supreme Court for the next 2 to 3 to 4 decades. And Trump does have that right. And for all the Democrats who are fuming, who are scheming, if you didn't want that to happen, you should have voted for Hillary, and you should have told all your friends who were sitting on their thumbs and going, well, her emails were missing, and you should have told them, fuck that. Do you understand what's up against her and what will come in if we don't vote for her? Well, now we know, okay? And the thing that terrifies me almost more than anything else is not even pushing the court to the far right now, which is happening. We know that, and this guy Kavanaugh will get in. But what is to stop, let's say, Clarence Thomas Or there's an 80-year-old guy on the court. I've never even heard, nobody even talks about him. I can't even remember his name, like Braver, or whatever the hell his name is. What if he retires too? He's 80. Clarence Thomas, I think, is 75. Thomas might think, well, Trump has 2 more years. I'll wait it out another year or two. And remember, I'll retire. So Trump can appoint one more person to take over for me when I'm gone. And we're all sitting around praying and hoping that Ruth Bader Ginsburg stays alive for another 2 to 6 years. It gets interesting, folks. But I will say this, the Democrats have been putting a lot of their eggs in the basket of immigration. They've been saying, they're tearing the families apart and they're putting children in cages, and we're the DACA kids and the poor immigrants and I don't think they're winning the culture war with that. They're galvanizing perhaps the people on the far-ish left with this call for helping and being really loving to immigrants who came here without our asking them to. They are illegal. It's not like we're mistreating, I'm sure we are mistreating people who are living on American soil and came here and are getting their visas and stuff. But these are people who show up at our border saying, let us in, and we being the people of the Statue of Liberty saying, well, yeah, we'd like to, but let us vet you first. Let's make sure you have roots here, family here, maybe a chance for a job. You don't have any diseases. You're not bringing any fruit with parasites. I mean, just wait, And then we've got thousands of you at our borders. Hang out. Let's figure this all out. And of course, our immigration laws have to be restructured and better. They're terrible. And they're unfair, and they involve all sorts of chicanery and bribery. That absolutely, everybody on all sides realizes that. But if you're trying to galvanize your basic American person, who is not only right-wing, but center and even center-left, by saying, we're those poor people coming here, they're desperate, and we're not treating them as well as, it's not going to work. And the Republicans are kind of counting on that. What could really hurt the Republicans, though, if not in the midterms, but 2.5 years from now, is the Supreme Court thing. If they bring in this Brett Kavanaugh guy, and then perhaps one of the other Supreme Court people dies or retires, then it becomes a Roe v. Wade fight. Then abortion goes right to the top of the list in America. And if you thought the Me Too marches and the pussy hat things when Trump was first elected about just the way women were talked about or treated, or the Weinstein stuff in Hollywood was bad. But if you thought those were marches, if you thought there was anger there, that would be borderline revolutionary in this country. Imagine if every woman felt that Roe v. Wade was actually in serious jeopardy, not just it being chipped away here and there, and conception being this, or you can carry a child to 16 months instead of 20, but then it becomes illegal and all that stuff. But boy, oh boy, if you get the vast majority of women in this country up in arms over abortion, and yeah, there's a percentage, probably a third, of women who are against abortion and who would not mind seeing Roe v. Wade struck down. But the other 2/3 will be saying, my body, my life, my decision. No man, no woman tells me what to do with what's growing inside me. And therefore, if you even try, if you put these people on the court who start making these decisions that push against Roe v. Wade and try to overturn it, you're going to, imagine if 2/3 of the women in this country decided to strike, forget the marches, they decided not to go into work that day, any kind of work, and not to make food or help their families or do anything. They just stood around, marched, or stayed at home in bed and did nothing for a day or a week. What would happen in this country? The stores that wouldn't open, the teachers staying home, classes not being taught, the crossing guards not going, the police not showing. Some jobs we can do, but think about that, women who are within the sound of my voice. Imagine not just a march day, but a strike day for women's reproductive rights. Just, if Kavanaugh gets on the court And then Trump has the option for the next 2 years of putting and you know, like if Clarence Thomas retires or Ginsburg dies within the last year or the last 6 months of Trump's presidency, McConnell isn't going to say, well, we'll better wait until the next election. No, he'll say, hey, Trump's the president, he gets to choose the next one. Well, that could happen. So just if it's starting here, if it's starting now, the idea of a general women's strike, and it can be a Lysistrata thing too. No sex. Don't stay home and bang your husbands, etc. Stay home and don't bang them. Tempt them and say, nah, not dealing with sex or birth control or any of that, because my body today, and I decide that I'm going to do with it what I choose. And all I can say as a fierce pro-choice advocate that I am, it's like, imagine. All these people, and I read these comments on the interwebs and people responding to the Kavanaugh stuff and who are saying that abortion is murder and that there's a real human life going on inside and that you've got to protect life in all its forms. Think of an 87-year-old man. 87-year-old man goes to the doctor, and this is sounds like a setup for a joke, but an 87-year-old man goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, sorry, man, you've got a tumor, it's cancer, it's malignant. Here's the deal. You can go for chemotherapy, we can cut it out, but it's probably already spread elsewhere. Now, the doctor can't tell that 87-year-old man what to do. You have no business telling him, hey, we've got to save your life. You have to go in there, cut into your body, take out the tumor, and then treat it with whatever drugs, whatever chemotherapy that we can to save your life. The old man can sit there and go, I may choose to do that, or I'm 87. I get up with aches and pains every day. I've lived long enough. I've seen great-grandchildren, and I don't want to spend my last year or two vomiting, having my body destroyed by drugs that kill good cells as well as bad. I don't want to be in a hospital. I don't want to go through surgery. If it gets bad, I'll control that with drugs and nausea things and stuff. But I choose not to, if God wants this tumor to kill me, I'm going to let it happen. I choose to let that happen. And no Republican, I hope, I imagine, even the most religious Christian, Catholic, brainwashed person could look at that old man and go, oh no, you better get that cut out to save your life. I would imagine they'd say, okay, man, you're a man, so your body, you can do as you please. If you want to have it cut out and get treatment, fine. If you want to leave it there and let it slowly kill you, because cancer at that age grows kind of slowly, your choice. How those same people, though, could turn around and tell a woman, ooh, I made a mistake, or something happened, the birth control didn't work, I've got this growing in me, it's a week or 2 months old, and I'm making a decision, I'm not ready, I don't want it, my body, my decision. How these men and these religious women can turn around and say, no, we're telling you what to do with it. You either bring it to term and you raise it for 18 years, or you adopt it out, but you do not go into your body and deal with it your way. And then, anyway, that is my piece on that. Spoken as a man, by the way, as a semi-privileged white male, but still here in the Daverhood. That's what's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. If this Brett Kavanaugh guy gets in, it's going to be a real unholy war between the right and the left in this country, between Democrat and Republican, between women and men, religious and non-religious and atheist. It's going to be a shit show that will make the marches that are going on in London right now nothing, or in Edinburgh. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that. That may be a clue coming up for our Saturday Segue. By the way, it's 12:10 in the afternoon Mountain Time here in Gridley, Colorado, at the University of Northern Colorado. I'm Dave Lefkowitz. We're doing the Dave's Gone By Facebookio program of the stream. It's time for our next song in the Saturday Segue. Why would we be playing this? doing some thrashing there.
Please speak softly, for they will hear us. And then I'll find out why we don't trust them. Speak out, dear, 'cause I cannot hear you. I need to know why we don't trust them. Explain to me this conspiracy against me.
Conspiracy Against Me from the album All We Know Is Falling, rather appropriate album title there, from the band Paramore, the song Conspiracy. What would we be playing Conspiracy by Paramore? Well, just yesterday, Ron Rosenstein announced that 12 Russian intelligence officers have been indicted for, quote, spear phishing into emails of members of the Democratic National Committee. So all this time that Trump has been bitching about the ideas of collusion and stuff, the DOJ has discovered that it was the Democrats who were harmed and hacked into by these Russians. Yes, indeed. What they would do is, through this phishing scheme, they would hack emails and passwords. Now, here's the deal, though, and the Republicans are, for the moment, breathing a sigh of relief because, first of all, no Americans were involved. There were 12 Russians that were the operatives. It didn't apparently affect the vote count or election results of the 2016 presidential elections. And there was, and, take this however you want it, there apparently was no collusion. Didn't think there was. Really didn't think Trump had anything to do with it, but Russia was involved in trying to influence our last elections. There are 12 indictments that are saying so now. And the hilarious part is that nobody can be prosecuted because we don't have an extradition deal with Russia, and we're not likely to get one because Trump doesn't think Russia's an enemy, they're just a competitor. So yes, you can say on both sides of the aisle that we've spent thousands and thousands of, tens of thousands of tax dollars on this just to find out that a bunch of Russians that we can't touch did some email stuff that didn't really ultimately affect anything. So the Republicans will say, see all this time and money and sweat wasted on this thing that comes to nothing, at least at the moment. But Democrats can say, that was that time. That was 2016. What the fuck are they planning for 2020? If they could get that far by hacking and passwords and going into Facebook and email and Instagram, whatever, what could they do to affect the election that's going to be a real bitter one in 2 years from now? So, go Ron Rosenstein, go. Try to find more patterns and things. But for now, it's still this uneasy, just before Trump goes off to his Russian summit with his buddy Putin, there's this. Will it make any kind of a difference at all? Remains to be seen. Okay, let's play a song by one of the better, one of the all-time best punk bands, actually, and political punk bands, actually. It's not, well, the place is in the title, but it's not the usual song you think of when you think of this band and this particular place.
London's burning! London's burning! All across the town, all across the night, everybody's driving with forehead light. Back to work, you're turning on your finger.
Yeah, that can only be one group. Of course, it's Ray Conniff and his sing. No, it's not. It's The Clash, from The Clash on Broadway. The song, not London Calling, which the song we all know from The Clash, but a lesser-known number, London's Burning. Why are we playing London's Burning? Well, London and now Edinburgh, Scotland, as we mentioned, is just burning up with anti-Trump fervor and furor. Donald Trump visited London this week. First, he went in an interview and kind of mocked their Prime Minister Theresa May and her handling of the upcoming Brexit. And then when he's with her, hours later, he's praising her and saying she's doing a fine job and calling the fact that he was dumping on her hours ago fake news. Yeah. And meanwhile, 100,000 Britons took to the streets of London with signs, costumes, and one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, the giant baby Trump blimp, which will be iconic from now on. And then they brought the blimp, now it's in Edinburgh. Somehow they're going to get that to America when the next batch of marches happen. But anyway, yeah, Trump is there talking to folks in Britain about Brexit and everything else, and really about trade, which is, we're in the middle of the trade war now with China, with our friends as well as our enemies. I do honestly believe, I'm bitching about Trump a lot on this particular episode. People who listen to this show know that I'm a little more even-handed than a lot of my Democrat and liberal friends are with Trump. And I praise him sometimes too. And I don't know. I'm not an economist. I really don't know if the trade war is bad. He's doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it because we've probably gotten jacked by both our friends and enemies on trade over the past couple of decades. And he's trying to redress a wrong. And there's going to be some pain involved until things kind of even themselves out. I don't know. A lot of the economists that you'll hear on both Fox and MSNBC will be saying, no, trade wars are always bad for everybody involved. It was a bad idea. It's going to raise prices. We'll might have a little recession coming on the tip of that if things don't ease up quick. We shall see. I don't know. But, Trump stirring the waters, let's say, wherever he goes, certainly in London when he's seeing Theresa May, and then Trump saying he felt unwelcome in London. and again, we're at this point in this country where the Democrats will look at that and they'll go, oh my God, just a couple of years ago, Obama came to London and he was treated like a rock star and he was respected and they cheered and I liked him and thought he was great. And now Trump goes over there and he's just considered a complete fool and a dangerous, crazy asshole. But the Republicans and the right wing would say, hey, why do we, if Europe loves him so much, maybe that's not so great for America. We should be loving him, and Europe should be a little afraid of him. And Europe should worry, oh, what's he going to do with trade? Because he's not there to be Europe's president, he's ours. So that's the situation we're in, ladies and gentlemen. Here in 2018, our situation here on Dave's Gone By is we've got one more song to play on this program as part of our Saturday segue of songs in the news. Oh, well, wish I didn't have to play this, but you will certainly recognize it if you're a fan of classic comedy.
Germany was having trouble, what a sad story. Needed a new leader to restore its former glory. Where was he? Where could that man be? We looked around and then we found the man for you and me. And now it's springtime for Hitler and Germany. Deutschland is happy and gay. We're marching to a faster pace. Look out, here comes the master race.
Yes, one of the great all-time film comedy songs there. Springtime for Hitler. Why are we playing that? No, I'm not making any kind of allusions to Donald Trump or any of that. It has to do, unfortunately, with a little bit of sad news that you probably didn't hear. But back just a couple of days ago, Alan Johnson passed away. Alan Johnson was a choreographer, best known, I could have done this actually in the Inside Broadway segment, but Alan Johnson was in a lot of ways known for doing Jerome Robbins's choreography after Jerome Robbins had passed. So I guess when they brought in Jerome Robbins Broadway, he would recreate the original choreographer of the inimitable Jerome Robbins. So when they would revive shows like Fiddler on the Roof and other productions, West Side Story, that Robbins worked on, this guy, Alan Johnson, would do the choreography, try to recreate that feeling. Well, Alan Johnson was also known for doing some movie work, very specifically working with Mel Brooks. So he worked on a couple of different films that had dancing and movement in them. He even directed the remake of To Be or Not to Be that starred Brooks and Anne Bancroft. He had a sci-fi film that he directed for Brooks Films. But most of all, we love Alan Johnson for 2 scenes in 2 different Mel Brooks films. If you saw Young Frankenstein and you saw the monster doing "Put on the Ritz," that was him. That was Alan Johnson choreographing Putting on the Ritz for Young Frankenstein. And if you know and love the greatest film comedy of all time, The Producers, Springtime for Hitler, choreographed by the late now Alan Johnson. Who can forget? I mean, first, second, and 12th time that I saw that film, the audacity of it, the way the audience is watching what's going on stage, the women coming down with pretzels and things on them and ridiculous headdresses, the singers dressed in Nazi regalia and swastikas, and then of course that moment, maybe the greatest, most outrageous moment in the history of film, or at least film comedy, of the entire chorus, the dancers getting into position and marching in a circular fashion as a giant moving swastika. I only wish I had been older in 1968 when the film came out and had gone to see that in the movies. I think the screenplay won the Academy Award for Mel Brooks, and just sitting there watching Springtime for Hitler, and then that moment when they march as a swastika. And I don't know how, I probably would have killed myself laughing, would have soiled every garment I was wearing, and just maybe even started screaming in my seat at the sheer horrible beauty of that comic moment. It's Mel Brooks's idea, of course, but it was Alan Johnson who made it happen on film back in, 50 years ago. It's the 50th anniversary of The Producers. So farewell to Alan Johnson. Well, that is our Saturday segue of songs in the news here on Dave's Gone By in the Daverhood with me, Dave Lefkowitz, producer and host of the show. If you want to find out more about this program, you know that you can go to my website, davesgoneby.com, DAVESGONEBY.com, davesgoneby.com. If you want to drop me an email, let me know what you thought of the show, suggestions for future episodes. Remember, my email address is davesgoneby@AOL.com. Now, remember that address again, because remember, you're gonna, by midnight tonight, send in your email to possibly win this book by our guest, Susan Shumsky, Maharishi and Me, Seeking Enlightenment with the Beatles Guru. Now, sure, you can go on Amazon or different places and buy the book. It's from Skyhorse Press. The list price is $26.99, but one lucky viewer/listener of this show can win this book. All you have to do is email me before midnight tonight Eastern Time at davesgoneby@AOL.com and tell me what your favorite Beatles song is. And if you have a Beatles song, send it to me. And I'm not going to just pick my favorite Beatles song. I'll choose at random from the list of entrants. And the lucky winner will get this book in the mail from the Daverhood, Maharishi and Me. And so we thank certainly Susan Shumsky for giving us an extra copy of the book, and also for being such a delightful, hilarious, and informative guest in the Daverhood earlier this morning with Rabbi Saul Solomon. Also going to thank Rabbi Saul for being with us and conducting that interview. For more information about him, go to his website, shalomdammit.com, shalom, D-A-M-M-I-T, shalomdammit.com, because you can read his rabbinical reflections there. You can hear them. You can also watch episodes of his great TV show from a few years back, and even see the extended version of his one-man show, Shalom Dammit, An Evening with Rabbi Saul Solomon. It's all there at his website, shalomdammit.com. And how can we forget to also thank Dick Hyman, legendary veteran pianist, and it just, for all the jokes, for all the puns, I just realized that Dick Hyman is a pianist. Yeah, and he's a pianist of many inches. I didn't even make that connection until right now. I apologize to you, my listeners who turn to me for comedy. But yes, but Dick Hyman, go see him. He's 91 or 92, and he will be playing at the 92nd Street Y on July 18th, this week. Plus, you'll also see him in December. He's going to be at Dizzy Gillespie's Club. But why wait until then? Go see him at the 92nd Street Y this week. And thanks again also to Dick Hyman for being with us in the Daverhood. Thank you so much to my darling and adorable and wonderful wife, for Joyce, for spending the first half hour with us on the show today. Love you so much, and thank you for your support and everything else. What else? Oh, tune in the next week and the next couple of weeks, because we got some great Dave's Gone Bys coming up for you. Oh, that's my wife sending me love. She's sending hearts and thumbs ups and Frida Kahlos. It's a very weird thing to have little tiny circles of Frida Kahlo coming at you. I'm getting some eyebrow waves right from her. But anyway, great guests that we're planning for the next week or two or three. Among them, oh man, we played some jazz piano. How about some jazz folk-inflected pop for the next week or two? Because we're going to have Al Stewart in the Daverhood. Al Stewart, you couldn't put on a radio in the mid-1970s without hearing The Year of the Cat, or Time Passages. Well, Al Stewart, his career has gone much more beyond that. He had folk albums and folk psychedelic albums before that. He released a bunch of music after that. He is still touring. You can still go see him. Let me see if I have the dates that he's going to be in New York and locally. It would be my friends in the Daverhood sheet. Just give me a moo. Do I have it? No, I don't have it on this sheet. But trust me, go check out Al Stewart. And if you don't know, or if you think, those two songs, I heard them in the 70s, wasn't that crazy about them. He's got so much more to him and lots to talk about. He's also a big wine collector. Might talk to him about that. Al Stewart coming to the Daverhood either next week or the week after. And really, really way cool. I do this Inside Broadway segment every week. I'm a big theater person. Another, some news that came out is that just a week or two ago, the director Ethan McSweeney took over the American Shakespeare Company in Stanton, Virginia. Now, Ethan McSweeney has directed a couple of shows on Broadway. He's done some off-Broadway, a ton of off-off. He's directed everywhere. He's directed operas. So we thought this would be a great chance to catch up with the director, Ethan McSweeney. So he will be a guest in the Daverhood in the next week or two or three, as he talks about what it means to not only direct on and off-Broadway and regionally, but to take over a big kind of major theater company right near Washington, D.C. that is doing Shakespeare. And they're doing Shakespeare in a very particular way. Ethan Sweeney will tell us about that. And we have a couple of other interviews in the hopper. Not going to jinx them or tell you what they are, but you got to check our website to find out what they'll be, davesgoneby.com. And of course, like us, follow us, see us first here on Facebook. Radio Dave Lefkowitz is the Facebook page, Radio Dave Lefkowitz. My Twitter feed, Radio Dave 2. That's Radio Dave, the number 2. Well, I feel like I kind of need to make a number 2. So that's my cue to end this broadcast on this Saturday, July 14th, 2018. It has been our 659th episode of the show. We've called it SHUMTHING. This way comes. Give it a few hours or about a day for me to get the video up on the website, get the audio with more music. We'll probably add a bit of longer passages from the music that we played for the real, actual archived audio file. You can get that all at davesgoneby.com. Remains for me to play, well, one more piece. from the brilliant pianist Dick Hyman. I mentioned, he did all these Woody Allen movies, and he did the theme for Moonstruck. So while the sun is blazing outside and we're having another hot weekend, let's cool down and think of the moon and be struck by the moon and Dick Hyman's version of Musetta's Waltz, or the theme from Moonstruck. Keep looking at the stars, keep reaching for the whatever, looking at the, I don't have a catchphrase. Oh, yes, I do. And gone by. And there you have it. Dave's Gone By for this Saturday, July 14th. Have a great one. Stay cool. And as I said, we got great guests coming up in the weeks ahead. Check us out every Saturday here on Facebook. Check out the website, davesgoneby.com. And thank you. Thank you so much. And don't forget to write in, try and win this book. Oh, I can't tear myself away, but I need to. So have a great one. Gone By.